What if Deku wasn't human, but Kryptonian? Meet Izuku Midoriya, cousin to Superman himself, crashed into the MHA world with godlike power. No kryptonite exists here, no magic can hurt him, and he never learned to hold back. This boy lifts buildings like toys and saves people with a smile that rivals All Might. Get ready to witness the most overpowered hero story ever told.
Welcome, Legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The spacecraft cut through Earth's atmosphere like a burning needle, trailing flames as it descended toward the Japanese countryside. Inside the farm home of Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, the couple huddled together on their couch, watching the news about another villain attack in Tokyo. "Look!" Hisashi pointed out the window. A bright streak illuminated the sky before crashing with a thunderous boom in their backyard. The impact shook the modest farmhouse. When they ventured outside, they found a smoking crater where their vegetable garden had been. In the center sat a metallic object, unlike anything they'd ever seen. "Is it some kind of weapon?" Inko asked, clutching her husband's arm. The metal pod hissed open. Inside, wrapped in a red blanket with a strange symbol, lay a baby boy with bright green eyes and dark hair. "A child?" Hisashi whispered in disbelief. As they watched, the infant lifted a piece of the spacecraft that must have weighed 50 pounds, holding it up with one tiny hand. "He's not normal," Inko said. Hisashi looked at his wife, seeing in her eyes the same thought he had. After years of trying to have a child without success, perhaps this was fate's answer to their prayers. "No," Hisashi agreed. "He's extraordinary." 13 years later, Izuku Midoriya stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean. At 16, he had grown tall and strong, his body perfectly proportioned and powerful. Not bulky like All Might, the current symbol of peace, but athletic and imposing nonetheless. "Last time I clocked you at Mach 3, Hisashi said, checking the specialized equipment he'd built to measure his son's abilities. "Think you can go faster today?" Izuku smiled. "Watch me." He bent his knees slightly and then launched himself into the sky. The takeoff created a small crater in the ground and sent a shockwave through the air. In seconds, he was a speck against the clouds, then gone completely. Inko emerged from their farmhouse, shielding her eyes as she looked upward. "I still get nervous when he does this." "He knows to stay above commercial flight paths," Hisashi assured her, eyes locked on his instruments. "He's already over the Pacific." 5 minutes later, a sonic boom announced Izuku's return. He descended gracefully, touching down with barely a sound despite his tremendous speed. 4 minutes, 12 seconds, Hisashi announced. "You circled the globe at Mach 5. New record." Izuku nodded, not even breathing hard. "I think I could go faster, but I didn't want to break the sound barrier over populated areas." Inko approached, carrying a plate. "I made cookies. Even superhumans need snacks." As Izuku reached for one, his head suddenly snapped toward the direction of the nearest city, Musutafu. His eyes narrowed, focusing on something miles away. Fire, an apartment building, people trapped. He handed the cookie back to his mother. "I have to go." Before they could respond, he was gone, a blue and green blur streaking toward the city. Hisashi put his arm around his wife. "There he goes again." "Our hero," Inko said softly. Flames engulfed the upper floors of the apartment complex, smoke billowing into the sky. Fire trucks surrounded the building, but the blaze had spread too quickly for conventional methods. "The top 3 floors are inaccessible," shouted a firefighter. "Stairwells collapsed, and our ladders can't reach." "There are still at least 20 people trapped up there," another reported grimly. Suddenly, a rush of wind swept through the area. The firefighters looked up to see a young man hovering above them. "I'll get them," Izuku said, his voice calm and resolute. Without waiting for a response, he flew directly into the burning building through a window. Inside, the heat was intense enough to melt steel, but Izuku felt nothing more than warmth. Using his X-ray vision, he quickly located survivors huddled in various apartments. He moved with incredible speed, breaking through walls when necessary, gathering frightened residents. Some he carried individually, others in groups, flying them down to safety before returning for more. When he reached the final apartment, he found a young girl clutching a stuffed rabbit surrounded by flames. The ceiling above her began to crack. "Don't be scared," Izuku said, kneeling down. "I'm here to help." As he picked her up, the ceiling collapsed. Instinctively, Izuku turned his back to shield her, the massive concrete chunks shattering against his invulnerable body. With the girl secure, he flew out through the collapsing structure. The crowd below erupted in cheers as he gently set her down beside a paramedic. "That's everyone," Izuku announced to the fire chief. "The building's a loss," the man replied. "The fire's too intense." Izuku looked back at the inferno. "I can handle that too." He rose into the air, positioning himself above the building. Drawing in a massive breath, he exhaled with tremendous force. His freeze breath washed over the flames, instantly crystallizing the air and dropping the temperature hundreds of degrees. Within seconds, the raging fire was reduced to wisps of steam. Landing again, Izuku found himself surrounded by news cameras and cheering civilians. "Young All Might does it again!" shouted a reporter, thrusting a microphone toward him. "That's what people are calling you. How does it feel to save so many lives?" Izuku smiled genuinely. "I'm just glad I could help. But I'm not All Might. He's still the greatest hero. I'm just Izuku Midoriya." "Are you planning to attend UA High School's hero program?" another reporter asked. "Yes, the entrance exam is tomorrow." "Is that even fair?" someone called out. "You're basically guaranteed to pass." Izuku's expression remained pleasant but became more serious. "Having power isn't what makes a hero, it's how you use it and why. That's what I hope to learn at UA." With a polite nod, he rose into the air and shot away, leaving the crowd staring in awe. The next morning, Izuku stood outside UA High School's massive gates along with hundreds of other applicants. Unlike many who looked nervous or intimidated, he appeared calm and focused. "Hey! You're that flying guy from the news." A pink-skinned girl approached him, her eyes wide with excitement. "You're already famous. I'm Mina Ashido." "Izuku Midoriya," he replied with a friendly smile. "Nice to meet you. Are you nervous?" she asked. "I mean, I guess you wouldn't be, right? Being able to fly and stuff?" Before he could answer, a loud voice cut through the crowd. "Out of my way, extras!" Izuku turned to see a spiky-haired blonde pushing through the other applicants. Their eyes met, and the blonde stopped abruptly. "Katsuki Bakugo," Izuku said, recognizing him from news coverage of a villain attack months earlier. "You were attacked by that slime villain. You fought well." Bakugo's eyes narrowed. "And you're the flying freak who's been all over the news. Don't think your fancy quirk makes you better than me. I'll be number one, got it?" Instead of being intimidated, Izuku just nodded respectfully. "I look forward to seeing what you can do." This calm response seemed to infuriate Bakugo further, but before he could retort, a voice came over the loudspeakers directing all applicants to the auditorium. Inside, the pro-hero present mic explained the practical exam. Robots worth different point values would be scattered throughout a mock city. Applicants would have 10 minutes to destroy as many as possible. "For someone like you, this should be easy," whispered a tall boy with glasses who sat beside Izuku. "I'm Tenya Ida, Izuku Midoriya. And maybe, but I'm sure they have some surprises planned." After the explanation, the applicants were divided into groups and transported to different entrance gates around the mock city. Izuku found himself at Site B, surrounded by nervous teenagers stretching and preparing their quirks. "Begin." Present Mike's voice suddenly blared, catching most by surprise. Izuku didn't hesitate. He launched into the air, his superhuman vision scanning the entire battlefield at once. Dozens of robots were already emerging from buildings and side streets. He dove toward the nearest cluster, 3 two-pointers and a 3-pointer. With precise movements, he tore through them with his bare hands, ripping metal like paper. In seconds, he had accumulated 9 points. All around, other applicants were engaging robots with their quirks. Izuku spotted a girl with brown hair struggling against a 3-pointer. As the robot raised its arm to strike her, Izuku appeared in front of it, catching its massive metal fist in his hand. "Need a hand?" he asked, crushing the robot's arm and then punching straight through its center. "Thanks," the girl gasped. I'm Ochako Uraraka. Izuku Midoriya, stay safe. He took to the air again, systematically targeting robots throughout the testing ground. His strategy wasn't just to accumulate points, but to help others when they were in danger. 6 minutes into the test, the ground began to shake violently. Buildings crumbled as a colossal robot, easily the size of a skyscraper, emerged from the center of the mock city. The zero-pointer! Someone shouted in terror. Most applicants turned and ran. Izuku was about to join them. Present Mike had said there was no point in fighting it when he heard a cry for help. Using his enhanced hearing, he pinpointed the source. Uraraka was trapped under debris directly in the zero-pointer's path. Without hesitation, Izuku flew toward her at incredible speed. The robot noticed him and swung a massive fist, but Izuku dodged easily and continued toward Uraraka. "Hold on," he said, carefully lifting the concrete slab pinning her legs. "My ankle," she winced. "I think it's broken." The zero-pointer loomed above them, its massive foot about to come down directly on their position. Uraraka closed her eyes in fear, but Izuku stood up, bracing himself. "Get behind me," he said calmly. As the robot's foot descended, Izuku raised both hands and caught it. The impact created a shockwave that shattered windows throughout the mock city. For a moment, the enormous weight pushed Izuku down slightly, his feet cracking the pavement beneath him. But then he straightened, muscles tensing as he pushed back. Every applicant and examiner watching fell silent as this teenager lifted the zero-pointer's foot, preventing it from crushing him and Uraraka. "This is going too far," Izuku said, his voice hardening. With a tremendous heave, he not only pushed the foot back, but sent the entire robot staggering backward. Then, still holding Uraraka securely with one arm, he launched himself at the robot. His fist connected with the center of its chassis, and the impact tore through metal, circuits, and structural supports. The zero-pointer's entire body crumpled around his fist before exploding outward in a spectacular display of destruction. As debris rained down, Izuku used his super speed to catch the largest pieces before they could harm other applicants. In seconds, he had gathered a small mountain of robot parts and gently set them down in an empty area. Landing next to Uraraka, he carefully picked her up. "Let's get that ankle looked at." The other applicants stared in stunned silence. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. From the monitoring room, the UA faculty watched with mixed reactions. "Well," said Principal Nezu, a small animal-like creature with high intelligence, "I think we found this year's top scorer." "That level of power is unheard of," commented a skeletal man with blonde hair, All Might in his weakened form. He destroyed the zero-pointer with a single punch. "More importantly," added a black-haired man wrapped in a capture scarf, "he prioritized helping others over points. That's what being a hero is about." Present Mike leaned back in his chair. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're looking at something special." A week later, Izuku sat with his parents in their living room, an unopened envelope from UA on the coffee table. "Well?" Inko prompted. "Aren't you going to open it?" Izuku picked up the envelope. "I'm not worried about passing, but I am curious about my score." He opened it, and a small projector device fell out. When activated, it displayed a hologram of All Might himself. "I am here as a projection," the symbol of peace announced in his booming voice. "Young Midoriya, I'm pleased to inform you that not only did you pass the entrance exam, but you achieved the highest score in UA history." The hologram displayed his results: 77 villain points for destroyed robots and 70 rescue points for helping other applicants, for a total of 147 points. The previous record had been 96. However, All Might continued, his expression becoming more serious, "What truly impressed us was not your power, but how you used it. When others ran from danger, you flew toward it to help someone in need. That is the essence of heroism." The projection showed footage of Izuku stopping the zero-pointer and rescuing Uraraka. "We look forward to seeing you develop at UA, young man. This will be your first step toward becoming a true hero. Welcome to your hero academia." The projection ended, and Izuku looked at his parents. "I never doubted you," Hisashi said proudly. Inko wiped away a tear. "Just promise me you'll be careful, even with all your powers." Izuku nodded. "I will. This is just the beginning." On his first day at UA, Izuku arrived early, flying high above the campus before descending near the entrance. He'd chosen to wear the standard uniform despite being offered an alternative outfit that would better accommodate his flying. "I want to be like everyone else," he had told the support department. As he walked through the gates, he heard someone call his name. Turning, he saw Uraraka approaching, her ankle fully healed. "Midoriya, I never got to properly thank you for saving me during the exam." "No thanks needed," he replied with a smile. "How's the ankle?" "Good as new. Recovery girl fixed me up in no time." She fell into step beside him. "I still can't believe how you handled that giant robot. Were you even trying?" Izuku rubbed the back of his head. "I just did what anyone would do." "No, what you did was amazing." She beamed at him. "I'm so glad we're in the same class." As they continued toward the building, Izuku noticed people staring and whispering. He'd grown used to the attention over the years, especially after his many rescues had made the news, but it still felt strange. Class 1A was located in a massive door marked with their class designation. Inside, several students were already seated. Bakugo sat with his feet on his desk, scowling. "Oh great, it's you," he growled when he spotted Izuku. "Good morning, Bakugo," Izuku replied politely. The tall, serious boy from the exam orientation approached them. "I'm Tenya Ida from Somei Private Academy. Your performance in the practical exam was nothing short of phenomenal, Midoriya." Before Izuku could respond, the classroom door slid open, revealing a man encased in a yellow sleeping bag lying on the floor. "It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down," the man said, unzipping the sleeping bag. "Time is a precious resource. Don't waste it." He introduced himself as Shota Aizawa, their homeroom teacher, and immediately ordered them to change into gym clothes and meet him on the school grounds. Outside, Aizawa explained they would be taking a quirk assessment test, 8 physical trials to gauge their abilities. "Midoriya," Aizawa called. "You finished first in the entrance exam. How far could you throw a softball using your quirk in middle school?" "I've never actually measured it," Izuku admitted, "but I once skipped a stone across the Pacific Ocean from Japan to Hawaii." Murmurs rippled through the class. "Try throwing with your full power," Aizawa instructed, handing him a ball. "Just don't leave Earth's atmosphere." Izuku nodded, took his position in the circle, and considered how much strength to use. He didn't want to destroy the ball or create a devastating sonic boom, but he also wanted to demonstrate his ability. With a controlled motion, he threw the ball. It vanished from sight instantly, creating a small shockwave that ruffled everyone's hair. Aizawa's device displayed the reading, "Fret." "The ball broke the tracking system," Aizawa explained. "It exceeded the maximum measurable distance. Essentially, it's still going." The class erupted in amazed exclamations. "That's insane! He's like a god or something." Bakugo trembled with rage. "What the hell kind of quirk is that?" Aizawa silenced them. "Being impressed won't help you become heroes. Midoriya has an exceptional quirk, but each of you has unique abilities valuable in different situations. This test will help determine what those are." Throughout the remaining trials, Izuku continued to display his extraordinary abilities. He completed the 50-meter dash in 0.1 seconds, grip strength broke the measuring device, the standing long jump took him clear across the UA campus, and so on. After the tests, Aizawa displayed everyone's rankings. Izuku was first, followed by Momo Yaoyorozu, Shoto Todoroki, and Katsuki Bakugo. At the bottom was a small boy named Minoru Mineta. "By the way, I was lying about expelling anyone," Aizawa revealed. "It was a logical ruse to draw out your best performances." As the class reacted with shock and relief, Aizawa approached Izuku privately. "Midoriya, a word." They stepped aside as the others headed back to change. "Your power level is unprecedented," Aizawa said bluntly. "Far beyond even All Might's. That presents unique challenges for your education here." "I understand, sir. Do you? The point of UA is to help you grow as a hero, but how do we challenge someone who can throw a ball into space?" Aizawa's tired eyes studied him. "We'll need to focus on the aspects of heroism beyond raw power, judgment, crisis management, public relations, rescue techniques." Izuku nodded seriously. "That's exactly what I want to learn. I know I'm strong, but strength alone doesn't make a hero." Aizawa seemed satisfied with this answer. "Good, because tomorrow, things get more difficult and not in ways your super strength can solve." The next day brought their first hero basic training class, taught by none other than All Might himself. "I am here!" the symbol of peace announced, bursting through the door in his Silver Age costume, coming through the door like a normal person. The class erupted in excitement. Even Izuku found himself grinning at the larger-than-life presence of Japan's greatest hero. Today's lesson will be a battle trial, All Might declared. You'll be divided into hero and villain teams for indoor combat scenarios. He explained that they would be using their hero costumes for the first time. Each student had submitted designs to the support company, which had created their outfits. Izuku's costume was relatively simple compared to some others. A blue bodysuit with red boots and a red cape, emblazoned with the same symbol that had been on his baby blanket when he arrived on Earth. His parents had kept it safe all these years, telling him it might have significance from wherever he came from. As they assembled in their costumes, Bakugo glared at him. "Nice outfit, Space Boy. Too bad it won't help you when I blast you into next week." "I look forward to working with you too, Bakugo," Izuku replied calmly. All Might divided them into teams and announced the first match. Team A, Izuku and Uraraka as heroes versus Team D, Bakugo and Ida as villains. The villains will guard a nuclear weapon inside the building, All Might explained. Heroes must either capture the villains using this special tape or touch the weapon to win. Villains win by protecting the weapon until time expires or capturing the heroes. As they prepared to enter, Uraraka looked nervous. "Bakugo seems to really hate you." "He's competitive," Izuku replied. "He wants to be the strongest, and my abilities threaten that goal." "What's our plan?" Izuku considered. "I could scan the building with my X-ray vision, find the weapon instantly, and end this in seconds, but that wouldn't be fair or helpful for our training." "So what do? We work together as a team. That's what heroes do." He smiled at her. "I'll handle Bakugo, who will likely come straight for me. You use your zero-gravity quirk to reach the weapon while Ida is distracted." Inside the building, Bakugo waited impatiently while Ida guarded the papier-mâché nuclear weapon on the top floor. "I'm going to crush that smug bastard," Bakugo growled. "This is just training," Ida reminded him, fully embracing his villain role. "Besides, you saw what he did in the assessment. Perhaps a strategic approach would be wiser." "Shut up, Four Eyes. I don't need strategy to beat him." Meanwhile, Izuku and Uraraka entered cautiously through the ground floor. "He's coming," Izuku said quietly, his super hearing detecting Bakugo's footsteps. "Fifth floor corridor, moving fast. The weapon is on the top floor with Ida." "You can hear all that?" Uraraka whispered, amazed. Before Izuku could answer, Bakugo burst around the corner, his explosive quirk propelling him forward. "Die!" he screamed, his gauntlet aimed directly at Izuku's face. "Go find the weapon," Izuku told Uraraka calmly. "I've got this." As Bakugo unleashed a massive explosion, Uraraka ran toward the stairs. The blast engulfed Izuku completely, destroying part of the corridor wall and filling the area with smoke. "How's that, you flying freak?" Bakugo sneered. The smoke cleared to reveal Izuku standing exactly where he had been, completely unharmed. Not even his costume showed signs of damage. "That was impressive, Bakugo," Izuku said sincerely. "The force behind your explosions is remarkable." Bakugo's triumphant expression twisted into rage. "Don't you dare look down on me!" He launched himself at Izuku with a series of explosions, attacking from multiple angles with incredible speed and precision. Each blast was powerful enough to shatter concrete, but Izuku merely stood his ground, not bothering to defend or counterattack. "Fight back!" Bakugo demanded, growing increasingly frustrated. "I don't want to hurt you," Izuku replied. "You think I'm weak?" Bakugo lifted his right gauntlet. "My sweat stores up nitroglycerin in these gauntlets. One big blast and even you will feel it." In the monitoring room, All Might grew concerned. "Young Bakugo, that's too dangerous. Stop!" But Bakugo had already pulled the pin. A massive explosion erupted, far larger than any before, completely destroying that section of the building. The force was so great that it was felt throughout the entire structure. When the dust settled, Izuku remained standing, though now he held Bakugo's wrist in a gentle but firm grip, having moved to stop him from firing another such blast. "That could have hurt someone," Izuku said, his voice still calm, but now carrying a note of steel. "Uraraka, the other students monitoring, even yourself, being a hero means protecting people, not endangering them." For the first time, Bakugo looked genuinely shaken. What the hell are you?" Meanwhile, Uraraka had reached the top floor and found Ida guarding the weapon. Using her quirk on herself, she floated above him, waiting for the right moment. "I know you're there, hero," Ida declared dramatically, fully committed to his villain role. "Your floating trick won't work on me." Uraraka couldn't help but giggle at his over-the-top performance, giving away her position. Ida used his engine quirk to move the weapon away from her approach. Back on the lower floor, Izuku decided it was time to end his confrontation with Bakugo. "You're an incredible fighter with an amazing quirk," he told the still-stunned Bakugo, "but this match is over." Moving faster than Bakugo could perceive, Izuku wrapped the capture tape around him, officially eliminating him from the exercise. "Villain Bakugo has been captured," All Might's voice announced over the intercom. Upstairs, Ida heard the announcement and redoubled his efforts to protect the weapon. But he was outnumbered now, as Izuku appeared beside Uraraka in a blur of movement. "Sorry about that," Izuku said. "Thought you might need some help." Working together, they quickly overwhelmed Ida. Uraraka touched the weapon, securing their victory. "Hero Team wins," All Might declared. Back in the monitoring room, All Might gathered the students to review the exercise. "Can anyone tell me who the MVP of this match was?" Many immediately pointed to Izuku, but Yaoyorozu raised her hand. "While Midoriya's power is undeniable, I believe Ida was actually the MVP. He was the only one who fully embraced his role and stuck to the mission objectives. Bakugo was driven by a personal vendetta, Uraraka got distracted, and Midoriya, while effective, could have ended the match instantly, but chose not to." All Might nodded approvingly. "An excellent analysis. Being a hero isn't just about winning, it's about how you win and why you fight." As the class continued with other matchups, Izuku approached Bakugo, who sat alone, still processing his defeat. "You're incredibly strong," Izuku said. "With more training and experience, you'll be an amazing hero." Bakugo didn't look up. "I don't need your pity." "It's not pity, it's respect." Izuku placed a hand on his shoulder. "I may have powers you don't, but you have a drive I admire. We can learn from each other." Before Bakugo could respond, the building suddenly shook violently. Emergency alarms blared throughout the facility. All Might's voice came over the intercom. "Students, remain calm. There's been an incident at the main campus. Stay here while I investigate." But Izuku's super hearing had already picked up the cause. An explosion at the main building, screams, and a voice declaring that the League of Villains had come to kill All Might. Without hesitation, Izuku flew through the window, shattering the glass as he raced toward the source of the commotion. "Midoriya, wait!" All Might called after him, but Izuku was already gone. At the USJ facility, chaos reigned. A swirling black mist had deposited dozens of villains throughout the massive training ground. At the center stood a man covered in disembodied hands and a towering creature with an exposed brain and a beak-like mouth. "Where is All Might?" demanded the hand-covered villain, scratching his neck compulsively. The schedule said he would be here. The few pro-heroes present, 13 and Eraserhead, stood protectively in front of the students who hadn't been scattered by the Warp Villain's quirk. "Evacuate the students," Aizawa told 13. "I'll handle these villains." He leapt into action, his capture weapon and erasure quirk allowing him to take down multiple opponents despite being outnumbered. But the hand villain watched with detached interest. "Nomu," he finally said. "Kill Eraserhead." The brain-exposed creature moved with shocking speed, grabbing Aizawa and slamming him into the ground repeatedly. Blood splattered as bones cracked under the assault. Suddenly, a blue and red blur streaked into the facility. The next instant, the Nomu was flying backward, crashing through the dome's wall and disappearing into the distance. Izuku stood protectively over Aizawa's broken body, his eyes glowing red with barely contained heat vision. "Who are you?" the hand villain asked, scratching his neck more frantically. "You're not All Might." "My name is Izuku Midoriya," he replied, voice steady, "and you're under arrest." The villain laughed. "Kurogiri, bring Nomu back." The mist villain expanded, attempting to create a portal, but Izuku moved faster than anyone could see. In an instant, he was behind Kurogiri, his hand gripping the metal brace that seemed to be the physical core of the mist villain's body. "I don't think so," Izuku said, compressing the metal slightly. "Call off your attack now, or I'll be forced to take more drastic measures." The hand villain's red eyes widened behind the disembodied hand covering his face. What are you? Some kind of secret weapon? A new pro? You're just a kid. I'm a UA student, Izuku replied. Now, order your people to stand down before anyone else gets hurt. Instead, the villain lunged forward, hand outstretched. Let's see if you'll disintegrate like everything else I touch. His fingers connected with Izuku's face, but nothing happened. The villain's quirk, which could decay anything it touched, had no effect. In the blink of an eye, Izuku had the villain restrained. Moving so quickly, it appeared as if the villain had simply teleported into a captured position. It's over, Izuku announced to the remaining villains. Your leaders are captured. Surrender now. Many of the lower-level criminals immediately dropped their weapons, terrified by the display of power they'd just witnessed. Others tried to flee but found themselves quickly rounded up by Izuku's super speed. Within minutes, the entire villain force was subdued. Izuku used pieces of the facility to create makeshift restraints, bending metal around their wrists and ankles. By the time All Might and other pro-heroes arrived as reinforcements, Izuku had already secured the villains and was tending to Aizawa's injuries, using his X-ray vision to assess the damage. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, he reported as Recovery Girl hurried over. I've stabilized him as best I could. All Might stared in astonishment at the scene. Dozens of villains restrained, the leaders captured, and all accomplished by a single first-year student. Young Midoriya, he said, his voice a mix of pride and concern, you shouldn't have rushed in alone. I heard people in danger, Izuku replied simply. There wasn't time to wait. Later, after the police had taken the villains into custody and the injured had been treated, Principal Nezu called a meeting with the faculty and Izuku. While your actions were undoubtedly heroic, Nezu said, his small animal features unreadable, they were also reckless. You're still a student, not a licensed hero. With respect, sir, Izuku responded, I couldn't stand by when lives were at risk, not when I have the power to help. That's precisely the attitude we seek to nurture at UA, Nezu acknowledged, but tempered with proper judgment and procedure. All Might, in his deflated true form, spoke up. Young Midoriya, your power is extraordinary, perhaps greater than any we've seen in a quirk before. But with great power comes great responsibility, Izuku finished. My parents have been telling me that since I was old enough to understand. Then understand this, Aizawa said from his hospital bed, his entire body wrapped in bandages. The law exists for a reason. Even heroes with licenses must follow protocols. Without that structure, it's just vigilantism. Izuku nodded solemnly. I understand. I'll follow the rules more carefully in the future. See that you do, Nezu said, because next time there may be consequences even your remarkable abilities can't overcome. News of the USJ incident spread quickly, turning Izuku into something of a celebrity both within UA and across Japan. Amateur footage of him subduing the villains had leaked online, garnering millions of views. When he returned to class the next day, his classmates bombarded him with questions and praise. Dude, you took down like 50 villains by yourself. Was that big monster thing tough? It looked scary. Are you even human? This last question, asked innocently by Kaminari, made Izuku pause momentarily before smiling. Just someone with a powerful quirk who wants to help people. Bakugo watched from his seat, unusually quiet. When their eyes met, he didn't scowl or yell as expected. Instead, he gave a slight nod, the closest thing to respect he'd ever shown Izuku. As the days passed, Izuku tried to return to normal student life, but things had fundamentally changed. Teachers modified their lessons to accommodate his abilities, creating special challenges that tested more than just his strength. Students from other classes would stop to watch him train, and pro-heroes occasionally visited, curious about the teenager who was already displaying power that rivaled or exceeded their own. 2 weeks after the USJ incident, Aizawa announced that the UA Sports Festival would proceed as planned, despite security concerns. This is your chance to show the pro-hero agencies what you're capable of, he explained. For many of you, this will determine your future prospects for internships and eventually your hero careers. After class, several students approached Izuku. Are you even going to participate? Kirishima asked. I mean, it seems kind of unfair to the rest of us. Of course he should participate, Ida objected. The festival is a tradition. Todoroki, who had remained distant from most classmates, joined the conversation. Midoriya, a word. The two stepped aside from the others. "You've noticed I haven't used my left side," Todoroki said, referring to his fire quirk. "That's because I refuse to use my father's power. But against you, I may not have a choice. Consider this a declaration of war." Izuku studied him thoughtfully. "Todoroki, your power is your own, not your father's. But I respect your challenge, and I'll meet it head-on." The day of the sports festival arrived with enormous fanfare. Security was unprecedented, with dozens of pro heroes patrolling the grounds. The stadium was packed with spectators eager to see UA's rising stars, especially the now famous Izuku Midoriya. Present Mike's voice boomed over the loudspeakers as Class 1A entered the arena. "And here they are, folks, the students who survived a villain attack, Class 1A." The crowd erupted in cheers, cameras focusing particularly on Izuku. The first event was an obstacle race around the stadium. When midnight gave the signal to start, most students surged forward together, immediately getting stuck in the narrow exit tunnel. Izuku, not wanting to simply fly over everything and end the race in seconds, decided to restrict himself to running at merely superhuman speed, rather than his full capability. This still put him far ahead of everyone else, but at least gave them a fighting chance. The first obstacle was a field of robots, including several massive zero-pointers from the entrance exam. While other students fought or evaded them, Izuku simply ran straight through, his invulnerable body tearing through metal as if it were paper. Next came a canyon crossing with tight ropes. Again, Izuku could have flown, but instead chose to run across the ropes, his perfect balance making it look effortless. The final obstacle was a minefield. Here, Izuku deliberately slowed down further, allowing some competitors to catch up. Todoroki and Bakugo had been racing neck and neck for second place, using their quirks creatively to overcome each obstacle. As they entered the minefield together, Izuku decided to make the race more interesting. He deliberately triggered several mines in front of him, creating a massive explosion that launched him forward at tremendous speed, but still within what a powerful quirk user might achieve. He crossed the finish line first, with Todoroki and Bakugo seconds behind. And the winner is Izuku Midoriya, Present Mike announced. No surprise there, folks, but an impressive showing from Todoroki and Bakugo as well. The second event was a cavalry battle where students formed teams to collect headbands worn by the other competitors. Izuku, having finished first in the race, was worth 10 million points, making him everyone's primary target. "Want to team up?" Uraraka asked him. "Though I guess you could probably win this alone too." "Actually, I'd love to work with you," Izuku replied. "And maybe Ida and Tokoyami too? This event is about teamwork, not individual power." Their team formation was unusual. Instead of having Izuku as the rider collecting headbands, they put him as one of the horses, with Uraraka as the rider. This strategic choice utilized his strength while allowing others to shine. When the event began, nearly every team immediately charged toward them. "As expected," Izuku said, "hold on tight." He didn't fly, that would have been too unfair, but he did use his super speed and strength to evade and block other teams. Tokoyami's Dark Shadow provided excellent defense, while Ida's engines gave them mobility when needed. Throughout the competition, Izuku was careful to use only enough power to keep their team competitive without completely dominating. This allowed for an exciting and fair contest, with Team Todoroki and Team Bakugo providing serious challenges. In the final moments, Todoroki nearly managed to freeze them in place, while Bakugo launched an aerial assault, but Izuku's team prevailed, advancing all four members to the final tournament. That was amazing teamwork. Uraraka cheered as they qualified. "You could have just done everything yourself, but you didn't," Izuku smiled. Being a hero isn't about doing everything alone. It's about working together and bringing out the best in each other. The tournament bracket was announced, and Izuku found himself matched against Shinso, a student from General Studies with a mind control quirk. Before their match, Shinso approached him. "The great Izuku Midoriya," he said with a hint of bitterness, "born with a perfect quirk while the rest of us struggle. How does it feel to have everything handed to you?" Izuku recognized the provocation for what it was, an attempt to get him to respond and fall under Shinso's brainwashing. Instead of speaking, he simply smiled and nodded respectfully before walking away. Their match was brief but respectful. Shinso attempted several provocations, but Izuku remained silent, quickly ending the match by gently pushing Shinso out of bounds, using only a fraction of his strength to ensure he wasn't hurt. After the match, Izuku approached Shinso. "Your quirk is incredible for hero work," he said sincerely. "Subduing villains without violence could save countless lives. Don't give up on your dream." Shinso looked surprised by the encouragement. "Thanks." The tournament continued with exciting matches between the other students. Todoroki defeated Sero with a massive ice attack. Bakugo overpowered Uraraka despite her creative strategy. Tokoyami's Dark Shadow proved formidable against Momo's creations. In the quarterfinals, Izuku faced Kaminari, whose electrical discharge was completely ineffective against Izuku's invulnerability. Again, Izuku won with minimal effort but maximum respect for his opponent. Todoroki's match against Ida was more competitive, with both students pushing their quirks to the limit before Todoroki's ice ultimately secured his victory. The semifinals matched Izuku against Tokoyami, whose Dark Shadow quirk, while powerful, couldn't match Izuku's abilities. And on the other side of the bracket, Todoroki defeated Bakugo in a spectacular clash of ice, fire, and explosions. This set up the final that many had anticipated: Izuku versus Todoroki. As they took their positions in the arena, Todoroki spoke quietly. "I won't hold back. I'll defeat you using only half my power." Izuku studied him thoughtfully. "You're limiting yourself for no reason, Todoroki. Your fire is yours, not your father's." "Shut up and fight," Todoroki responded, unleashing a massive wave of ice that would have instantly frozen any normal opponent. Izuku stood his ground, letting the ice engulf him completely. For a moment, he was hidden within a glacier that towered above the stadium. Then, with minimal effort, he shattered the ice, stepping forward unharmed. "Is that all you've got?" he asked, not tauntingly but with genuine curiosity. Todoroki gritted his teeth, sending wave after wave of ice, each larger than the last. Izuku methodically broke through each attack, moving closer to Todoroki with each step. From the stands, Endeavor watched with growing frustration. "Use your fire, Shoto!" he bellowed. Todoroki's expression darkened. "Never," he muttered. When Izuku finally reached him, Todoroki was shivering from overuse of his ice, frost forming on his right side. "You're hurting yourself," Izuku observed. "Your body isn't meant to use only half your quirk. It's not your concern. It is when you're sacrificing your potential because of someone else's actions." Izuku's voice remained calm. "Your father may be flawed, but your fire is yours. You don't have to be defined by his mistakes." Todoroki hesitated, memories of his mother and her pain flooding back. "You don't understand. I understand choosing your own path," Izuku said. "My power came with responsibilities I didn't ask for, but I choose how to use it. Just like you can choose how to use yours." Something shifted in Todoroki's eyes. Slowly, flames began to flicker from his left side, growing larger until they engulfed his arm. "That's it," Izuku encouraged. "Your power, your choice." With a roar, Todoroki unleashed both his ice and fire simultaneously, creating a spectacular collision of elements that rocked the stadium. The temperature in the arena fluctuated wildly as steam filled the air. When visibility returned, Izuku stood unmoved at the center of a crater, his clothing singed but his body unharmed. "That was incredible," he said genuinely. "But this match is over." Moving at a speed Todoroki couldn't react to, Izuku gently but firmly pushed him out of bounds, careful not to hurt him despite the ease with which he could have done so. "Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya wins the UA Sports Festival," Midnight announced. Instead of celebrating, Izuku extended his hand to Todoroki. "Thank you for not holding back in the end. You're going to be an amazing hero." Todoroki looked at the offered hand for a long moment before accepting it. "You too, Midoriya." At the awards ceremony, Izuku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, who had defeated Tokoyami in the third-place match, stood on the podium. All Might himself presented the medals. "Young Midoriya," he said, placing the gold medal around Izuku's neck, "your power is matched only by your heart. That is what truly makes a hero." As the festival concluded, Izuku found himself surrounded by classmates offering congratulations. Even Bakugo approached, his usual aggression subdued. "This isn't over," he said, but the malice was gone from his voice. "I'll still become the #1 hero." Izuku smiled. "I'll look forward to working alongside you when you do." In the weeks following the sports festival, UA students participated in internships with pro-hero agencies. Unlike his classmates who received numerous offers, Izuku found himself in a unique position. Most agencies are hesitant to take you, Aizawa explained bluntly. They're concerned about liability issues given your power level, or they simply don't know what they could teach you. I understand, Izuku replied, though he couldn't hide his disappointment. However, Aizawa continued, there is one offer. He slid a document across his desk. All Might himself has requested you. And so, while his classmates dispersed across Japan to work with various heroes, Izuku found himself training directly with the symbol of peace. Young Midoriya, All Might said on their first day, in his true skeletal form rather than his muscular hero appearance, your power exceeds even mine at my peak. Physically, there's little I can teach you. Then why did you choose me for your internship? All Might smiled. Because power isn't what makes a great hero. It's judgment, compassion, and understanding when to use that power and when not to. Over the following days, All Might shared not battle techniques but wisdom. How to interact with civilians, how to minimize collateral damage, how to inspire rather than intimidate, and how to balance being both powerful and approachable. The world needs symbols, All Might explained. I've been that symbol for a generation, but my time is growing short. He gestured to his emaciated form. An old injury has been slowly destroying my power. Soon, I won't be able to maintain my hero form at all. Is there anything I can do to help? Izuku asked, concerned. All Might shook his head. Not with this, but you can help by becoming the next symbol that people look to for hope and security. Their training was interrupted on the third day by breaking news. The hero killer Stain had attacked multiple heroes in Hosu City, and a massive battle was underway involving several UA students who were interning there. I have to go, Izuku said immediately. All Might nodded. This is a sanctioned internship activity. Go, but remember everything we've discussed about restraint and public perception. Izuku flew to Hosu at supersonic speed, arriving to find the city in chaos. Several buildings were on fire, and strange creatures that resembled the Nomu from USJ were rampaging through the streets. Using his enhanced senses, Izuku quickly located his classmates. Ida, Todoroki, and a student from Class 1B named Ibara Shiozaki were cornered in an alley by a gaunt man wielding multiple blades, the hero killer. Stain had already wounded Ida, whose armor was pierced in several places, revealing bleeding injuries beneath. Todoroki was maintaining a defensive position, alternating ice and fire to keep Stain at bay, while Shiozaki's vine-like hair formed a protective barrier around them. He can paralyze you if he ingests your blood. Todoroki warned as Izuku descended into the alley. Ah, another child playing hero, Stain remarked, his long tongue flicking over cracked lips. Are you worthy, I wonder, or just another fake? These are my friends, Izuku said calmly, and you're under arrest for assault and attempted murder. Stain laughed, a chilling sound. Arrest? You don't understand my purpose. I'm purging the world of false heroes, those who care only for fame and fortune rather than true justice. He lunged with astonishing speed, blades flashing. For someone without a physical enhancement quirk, his movements were remarkably fast. But to Izuku, Stain might as well have been moving in slow motion. He easily evaded the attack and with precision that belied his enormous strength, disarmed Stain in an instant, crushing his weapons to uselessness. It's over, Izuku stated. Stain, however, wasn't finished. He pulled hidden blades from his costume, attacking with even greater ferocity. Die, fake hero! This time, Izuku didn't dodge. The blades shattered against his invulnerable skin. Stain's eyes widened in shock, but he quickly recovered, leaping back to reassess. What manner of quirk do you possess, boy? One that I use to protect people, Izuku replied. Something you've forgotten how to do. You dare lecture me? Stain's already disturbing appearance became more monstrous as rage consumed him. I have a vision for a better society, one where only true heroes exist. And who decides what makes a true hero? Izuku asked. You? A man who attacks from shadows and preys on the injured? That doesn't sound very heroic to me. With a roar of fury, Stain charged again. This time, Izuku ended the confrontation decisively, moving so quickly that to observers, Stain simply went from attacking to being securely restrained in an instant. Is everyone all right? Izuku asked, turning to his classmates. Ida struggled to his feet, still partially paralyzed by Stain's quirk. Midoriya, I was seeking revenge. My brother Ingenium. Stain crippled him. I abandoned my duties as a hero intern to hunt him down. We all make mistakes, Izuku said gently. What matters is learning from them. Their moment was interrupted by a massive crash nearby. One of the Nomu creatures had detected them and was charging down the alley. Stay back, Izuku instructed, stepping forward to meet the threat. The Nomu was similar to the one from USJ, but smaller and with wings. It screeched inhumanly as it attacked, claws extended. Izuku met its charge head-on, countering with a precisely measured punch that sent the creature flying backward without killing it. Before it could recover, he was upon it, restraining its limbs with bent metal from a nearby dumpster. There may be more, he warned the others. We need to get you medical attention and alert the pros about these creatures. As they emerged from the alley with the restrained Stain and Nomu, they found themselves surrounded by pro heroes who had been fighting the other creatures throughout the city. Among them was Endeavor, who scowled at the sight of Izuku effortlessly carrying both villain and monster. UA students, he growled, always in the middle of trouble. Father, Todoroki acknowledged stiffly. After handing over Stain and the Nomu to the authorities and ensuring his classmates received medical care, Izuku helped the pros contain the remaining creatures. His speed and strength proved invaluable, allowing him to subdue the rampaging Nomus without casualties. When the crisis was finally contained, the chief of police held a press conference specifically addressing the actions of the UA students. While we appreciate their assistance, we must emphasize that these were unauthorized actions by unlicensed individuals, he stated firmly. In ordinary circumstances, this would result in severe penalties. He then turned to acknowledge Izuku, who stood with the pro-heroes. However, given the extraordinary nature of Midoriya's quirk and the immediate danger to life, an exception is being made in this instance. Moving forward, we will be working with UA to establish special protocols for situations involving Midoriya specifically. This announcement sparked intense debate across Japan. Some praised Izuku's actions and the flexibility shown by authorities, while others worried about setting a precedent that might encourage vigilantism. Back at UA, Principal Nezu called Izuku to his office. "You're causing quite the stir, young man," he said, sipping tea. The Hero Commission is concerned about the precedent of allowing a student, even one with your abilities, to act without supervision. "I understand their concern," Izuku replied. "I don't want special treatment. Yet your circumstances are undeniably special." Nezu set down his cup. "Therefore, we've reached a compromise. You'll be granted a provisional hero license early with strict limitations. You may act only in genuine emergencies where loss of life is imminent, and you must report all activities immediately afterward." Izuku's eyes widened. "A provisional license? But I haven't even taken the exam." "Consider Hosu your exam," Nezu replied with a small smile. "You passed with flying colors." The summer training camp was meant to be a chance for Class 1A to improve their quirks in a secluded, focused environment. For Izuku, whose abilities needed no enhancement, it was primarily an opportunity to help his classmates and learn teamwork. Their bus wound through mountain roads toward a remote facility run by the Wild Wild Pussycats, a pro-hero team specializing in rescue operations. When they finally stopped, Pixie Bob, one of the Pussycats, made an unexpected announcement. "You're still 3 hours away by foot. Better get moving before the beasts find you." With a stomp of her foot, her Earth Flow quirk activated, creating a landslide that sent the students tumbling down the mountainside, all except Izuku, who simply hovered in place. "You too, Superboy," Pixie Bob insisted. "This is about teamwork." Izuku nodded, flying down to join his classmates who were already being attacked by earth monsters created by Pixie Bob's quirk. "We need to work together," Ida shouted, organizing their defense. Though Izuku could have defeated all the monsters instantly, he instead focused on supporting his classmates, providing assistance only when absolutely necessary. He let Bakugo blast monsters with his explosions, Todoroki freeze them with his ice, and Yaoyorozu create weapons for others to use. When they finally reached the camp as the sun was setting, all were exhausted except Izuku, but they shared a sense of accomplishment at having overcome the challenge together. "Good work, kittens," Pixie Bob praised. "Now get some rest. Training starts for real tomorrow." The next few days established a grueling routine. Mornings were dedicated to quirk enhancement exercises, with each student pushing their limits in different ways. Afternoons involved combat training and rescue scenarios. For Izuku, the Pussycats designed special challenges. While his classmates worked on extending their quirk usage, he practiced fine control, using his heat vision to light candles without melting them, lifting eggs without breaking them, and moving at super speed through obstacle courses without disturbing anything. "Your power is immense," Mandalay, the leader of the Pussycats, told him, "but a true rescue hero needs precision, not just strength." During rescue drills, Izuku was often assigned as team leader, learning to coordinate others rather than simply doing everything himself. These exercises proved valuable, teaching him that sometimes the best use of his abilities was enabling others to use theirs effectively. On the third night, the students were engaged in a test of courage through the forest when disaster struck. Villains from the League, the same group that had attacked USJ, infiltrated the camp. Izuku was in the middle of the test with Uraraka when his enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of combat from multiple directions. "Something's wrong," he said, immediately alert. "The teachers are fighting. I can hear villains throughout the forest." Uraraka's eyes widened. "What do we do? Find the others and head back to camp," Izuku instructed. "I'll check on the teachers." He flew upward, using his X-ray vision to survey the entire area. What he saw alarmed him. Aizawa and the Pussycats were engaged with multiple powerful villains. Students were scattered throughout the forest, and a massive villain composed of muscle and exposed brain tissue, another Nomu, but even larger than the one from USJ, was rampaging through the trees. Most concerning, however, was a man covered in scars who seemed to be hunting specifically for students. Using his super hearing, Izuku overheard him mutter, "Where's Bakugo? The boss wants him." Izuku made a quick decision. First, he flew to Aizawa's position. "Villains throughout the forest," he reported rapidly. "They seem to be targeting Bakugo specifically. There's also a Nomu, larger than the one from USJ. Aizawa nodded grimly. "Help evacuate the students. I'll coordinate with the Pussycats." Izuku flew to where he'd last seen Bakugo, finding him and Todoroki defending themselves against a villain who could create blades from his body. "Midoriya," Todoroki called, creating an ice wall to block an attack. "They came out of nowhere. They're targeting Bakugo," Izuku explained, landing beside them. "We need to get everyone back to camp." "I don't need protection," Bakugo snarled, blasting the approaching villain with an explosion. "It's not about need," Izuku replied firmly. "It's about strategy. If they want you, we deny them what they want." Before Bakugo could argue further, multiple villains converged on their position, including the scarred man Izuku had observed earlier. "There he is," the villain grinned, his entire body seeming to warp and distort. "Katsuki Bakugo, the next addition to our league." "Like hell!" Bakugo shouted. The villains attacked simultaneously. In the chaotic battle that followed, Izuku focused on defense, using his body to shield his classmates from attacks while they launched their own counteroffensives. The coordinated assault they'd practiced during training proved effective, with Todoroki's ice and fire creating opportunities for Bakugo's explosions, while Izuku handled any attacks they couldn't counter. Just as they seemed to be gaining the upper hand, a warp gate similar to Kurogiri's opened nearby, and the hand-covered leader of the league stepped through. "This is taking too long," he complained, scratching his neck compulsively. "Compress. Just take him and go." A villain in a top hat and mask lunged forward with surprising speed. Before Izuku could intercept, the villain had touched Bakugo, instantly compressing him into a small marble which he pocketed. "Got him!" Compress announced triumphantly. Izuku moved in a blur, grabbing the villain before he could retreat. "Release him, now." "I don't think so, boy." Compress's voice remained calm despite Izuku's grip. "You see, we came prepared for you this time." From the warp gate emerged the massive Nomu Izuku had spotted earlier. But unlike previous encounters, this creature moved with purpose and intelligence. It grabbed Izuku from behind with enormous strength. While not enough to hurt him, the surprise attack distracted him momentarily, just long enough for Compress to slip free and retreat toward the warp gate with the captured Bakugo. "Stop!" Izuku broke the Nomu's grip easily and flew after Compress, but multiple villains intercepted, working in tandem to slow him down. A villain with magnetic abilities hurled metal objects at Todoroki, forcing Izuku to choose between pursuing Compress and protecting his friend. Without hesitation, he chose the latter, deflecting the deadly projectiles. By the time he turned back, Compress, the League leader, and several other villains had escaped through the warp gate with Bakugo. The remaining villains retreated as well, leaving Izuku and Todoroki standing in the devastated forest clearing. "They took him," Todoroki said quietly. "Why would they want Bakugo?" Izuku's face set with determination. "I don't know, but we're going to get him back." The kidnapping of Katsuki Bakugo became national news overnight. Police and pro-heroes launched a massive search operation, but leads were scarce. The League of Villains had vanished without a trace. At UA, an emergency meeting was called, bringing together the faculty, police, and select top heroes including All Might, Endeavor, and Best Jeanist. "We believe they're trying to recruit Bakugo," Detective Tsukauchi explained. "The League has been growing, adding new members with useful quirks. Bakugo's power and his aggressive tendencies might make him a target for conversion." "Ridiculous," Aizawa stated flatly. "Bakugo has his flaws, but he has a strong sense of what it means to be a hero. He won't join them." "Nevertheless," Principal Nezu interjected, "his safety is our primary concern. How do we find him?" All eyes turned to Izuku, who had been invited to the meeting due to his provisional license and involvement in the incident. "I've been trying," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "I've flown over the entire city multiple times, using my enhanced vision and hearing to search for any sign of him or the League. Nothing so far." "They must be using some method to block detection," All Might reasoned. "Perhaps underground facilities with lead lining or quirks that mask their presence." Izuku suddenly straightened. "That's it. They must be using a quirk to hide their location. But quirks have limitations. If I fly high enough and listen for Bakugo's voice specifically, it's worth trying." Tsukauchi agreed. "But we need a coordinated plan. If you find them, you cannot go in alone, Midoriya. We need to assemble a rescue team." After establishing protocols, Izuku flew high above the city, reaching the upper atmosphere where the air thinned to almost nothing. Not that he needed to breathe. From this vantage point, he closed his eyes and focused his hearing, filtering through the countless sounds of the city below. He listened for Bakugo's distinctive voice, the specific pattern of his heartbeat that Izuku had memorized during their time at UA. For hours, he heard nothing relevant, only the normal sounds of urban life. Then, faintly, he caught it. Bakugo's voice, muffled but recognizable, shouting defiance. "I'll never join your crazy league of losers." Izuku honed in on the sound, tracing it to a decrepit warehouse in an abandoned industrial district. Using his X-ray vision, he penetrated the building, seeing through what appeared to be layers of specialized material designed to block sensory quirks. Inside, he saw Bakugo restrained in a chair, surrounded by League members, including the hand-covered leader, the Warp Gate villain, and several others he didn't recognize. They seemed to be trying to persuade Bakugo to join them willingly, rather than forcing him. Immediately, Izuku relayed the location through his communicator to the hero team assembled at U. "I've found them," he reported. "Camino Ward, Old Industrial Sector, warehouse with future painted on the roof. Bakugo is alive and resisting. Multiple villains present, including their leaders." "Good work," came Tsukauchi's reply. "Stand by. The team is mobilizing now. Do not engage alone." Izuku acknowledged the order, but continued monitoring the situation from above. Through his enhanced hearing, he could follow the conversation inside. "Join us, Bakugo," the leader, who Izuku now heard being called Shigaraki, urged. "Society labels you a potential villain because of your aggressive nature and destructive quirk. With us, you'd be appreciated for who you truly are." "Go to hell," Bakugo spat. "I'm going to be the #1 hero, not some pathetic criminal." Shigaraki sighed, turning to a well-dressed man in a suit who sat calmly observing. "He's not listening, Sensei," the man smiled. "Patience, Tamura. Quality recruits take time to persuade." Something about this Sensei made Izuku uneasy. The man appeared ordinary, yet the others treated him with extraordinary deference. The rescue team was still 15 minutes out according to their last communication. Izuku continued to watch, ready to intervene instantly if Bakugo's life seemed in danger. Suddenly, the well-dressed man looked up, directly toward Izuku's position in the sky. Impossible given the distance and Izuku's altitude. "We have an observer," the man announced calmly. "The Kryptonian child, I believe." Izuku's blood ran cold. Kryptonian? How could this man know that term when even Izuku himself had only learned it from the message crystal his parents had found in his spacecraft? The man stood, still looking skyward. "Since our guest is already here, perhaps we should greet him properly. Kurogiri, if you would." A warp gate opened directly beside Izuku, catching him by surprise. From it emerged the enormous Nomu from the training camp, but now it seemed even stronger, moving with impossible speed as it grabbed Izuku and pulled him through the portal. In an instant, Izuku found himself inside the warehouse, face to face with the League of Villains and their mysterious leader. "Ah, the boy who fell from the stars," the man said pleasantly. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." Izuku broke free from the Nomu's grip effortlessly, positioning himself between the villains and Bakugo. "Who are you? How do you know what I am?" The man smiled. "You may call me All for One. As for how I know, I've been collecting information and quirks for a very long time. Your arrival on this planet 13 years ago did not go unnoticed by those who were paying attention." Bakugo's eyes widened. "Planet? What the hell is he talking about, Midoriya?" Ignoring Bakugo's question, Izuku focused on All for One. "I'm taking Bakugo back now. The heroes are on their way. Surrender and this doesn't have to get violent." All for One chuckled. "Such confidence. But you see, I've been preparing for someone like you." He raised his hand and his arm began to transform, bulging with power. "I've collected some very special quirks just for this occasion." Before Izuku could react, All for One released a concentrated energy blast that struck him directly. The force was unlike anything Izuku had experienced before, sending him crashing through multiple walls of the warehouse. For the first time in his life, Izuku felt pain. He recovered quickly, flying back through the holes his body had created, a look of shock on his face. "How? Surprised?" All for One seemed pleased. "This particular combination of quirks produces energy similar to the red sun of your home world. Not quite as effective as actual red sunlight, but sufficient to temporarily reduce your invulnerability." Izuku didn't waste time wondering how this villain knew so much about him. He moved at super speed, aiming to grab Bakugo and escape before All for One could attack again. But the villain anticipated this, creating a barrier of energy that, while not stopping Izuku completely, slowed him enough for the Nomu to intercept. "I've studied you for years," All for One explained as Izuku fought off the Nomu. "Watching from a distance, analyzing your abilities, preparing countermeasures, you're fascinating, a being of almost limitless potential. In many ways, you're what I've spent my entire existence trying to become." Despite the unexpected resistance, Izuku was still far stronger than the Nomu. He tore through it with focused determination, then turned to face All for One directly. "Whatever you know or think you know about me doesn't matter," Izuku stated firmly. "I won't let you hurt Bakugo or anyone else." All for One sighed. "So single-minded. So heroic." He gestured to Shigaraki. "Tamura, take the others and our potential recruit and leave. I'll handle this personally." As Kurogiri opened multiple warp gates, Izuku had to make a split-second decision: pursue the escaping villains with Bakugo or confront All for One, clearly the greater threat. The decision was made for him when All for One unleashed another blast, even more powerful than before. This one Izuku managed to dodge, but the villain kept up the assault, forcing Izuku to focus on defense. "Go!" Shigaraki shouted, dragging a struggling Bakugo toward one of the warp gates. "Midoriya!" Bakugo called out, fighting against his captors. "Don't worry about me. Take this bastard down!" In that moment of distraction, All for One closed the distance between them, placing his hand directly on Izuku's chest. "I wonder, can I take your power as I've taken so many others?" A strange sensation washed over Izuku, as if something was trying to pull his very essence from his body. But after a moment, All for One withdrew his hand, looking mildly disappointed. "As I suspected, your abilities aren't quirks at all, but biological functions of your alien physiology. I cannot take them, but I can still hurt you." He demonstrated this by combining multiple quirks into another devastating attack that actually managed to draw blood from Izuku's lip, something that had never happened before. Recovering from the shock, Izuku realized he needed to end this quickly. The other villains had almost escaped with Bakugo, and reinforcements were still minutes away. Drawing on his full power, Izuku charged All for One, moving faster than the villain could track despite his weakened state. He landed a direct hit, sending All for One crashing through the warehouse floor and deep into the earth below. Not waiting to see if the villain would recover, Izuku immediately pursued Bakugo, who was being forced through a warp gate by Shigaraki and another villain. "Hang on!" Izuku called, reaching for his classmate. Bakugo stretched out his hand, their fingers almost touching, when All for One erupted from the ground behind Izuku, grabbing him in a hold enhanced by multiple strength quirks. "Not so fast, young Kryptonian," the villain grunted, his mask now cracked from Izuku's earlier blow. "Our business isn't finished." With enormous effort, Izuku broke free, but it was too late. The warp gate closed, taking Bakugo and the League members with it. "No!" Izuku turned back to All for One, eyes glowing red with heat vision. "Where did they take him?" All for One straightened his tie calmly. "Somewhere you won't find him, frat. But don't worry, Tamura has no interest in harming the boy. Quite the contrary." Before Izuku could respond, the wall of the warehouse exploded inward as All Might arrived in his hero form, followed closely by Endeavor, Best Jeanist, and several other top heroes. "All for One!" All Might roared, recognizing his arch-nemesis immediately. "It ends here." The villain seemed unperturbed by the new arrivals. "Ah, All Might, right on schedule, and looking so diminished. How much of your power remains, I wonder? 15 minutes? Less?" All Might turned to Izuku briefly. "Midoriya, where's young Bakugo?" "They took him through a warp gate," Izuku replied, frustration evident. "I couldn't stop them." "Focus on finding him," All Might instructed. "We'll handle All for One." The villain laughed. "Bold words, considering your condition, but by all means let the boy go. This is between us, after all, a continuation of our last encounter that left you so reduced." Understanding dawned on Izuku. All for One was the one responsible for All Might's injury, the one that had been slowly draining his power. "I'll find Bakugo," Izuku promised, taking to the air. As he flew out of the collapsing warehouse, the battle between All Might and All for One began in earnest, their clash sending shockwaves throughout the district. Izuku soared above the city, extending his senses to their maximum, desperately searching for any sign of Bakugo or the League. The effects of All for One's red sun radiation were already fading, his full power returning rapidly. Then, faintly, he caught a familiar sound, the distinctive pop of Bakugo's explosions, coming from an area across the city. Without hesitation, he flew toward it at top speed. He arrived at another abandoned building to find an unexpected scene. Kirishima, Todoroki, Ida, and Yaoyorozu had somehow tracked Bakugo themselves and were engaged in their own rescue attempt. Using a device Yaoyorozu had created, they had managed to locate the League's secondary hideout. Kirishima was reaching through a wall opened by Todoroki's ice, extending his hardened hand toward Bakugo while the villains argued among themselves, momentarily distracted. "Grab on," Kirishima was saying. "Come on, man." To Izuku's surprise, Bakugo actually took Kirishima's hand without argument, allowing himself to be pulled through the opening. The moment Bakugo was clear, Todoroki sealed the hole with ice. "We need to move," Ida urged, before they realize he's gone. Izuku descended beside them. "I'll get you all out of here." His classmates startled at his sudden appearance, but relief quickly followed. "Midoriya," Kirishima exclaimed. "Man, am I glad to see you." "What about the villains?" Todoroki asked, glancing back at the building where shouts of anger were already rising as the League discovered Bakugo's absence. "The pros will handle them," Izuku assured them. "Right now, our priority is getting Bakugo to safety." He gathered his classmates, lifting them with ease despite carrying 5 people at once, and flew away just as the League burst out of the building in pursuit. As they soared over the city, Bakugo remained uncharacteristically quiet until finally asking, "Was that villain telling the truth about you not being from here?" Izuku hesitated, then nodded. "It's complicated. We'll talk about it later." "Damn right we will," Bakugo muttered, but without his usual hostility. They landed near the police perimeter that had been established around the Kamino district, where the battle between All Might and All for One continued to rage, visible even from a distance. After ensuring his classmates were safely in police custody, Izuku turned back toward the battle. "Where are you going?" Ida called after him. All might need help, Izuku replied. All for One is incredibly powerful. He flew back toward the epicenter of destruction, arriving to find a scene that chilled him to the core. All Might, his muscular form flickering and fading, was on one knee before All for One, who appeared injured but still standing. Your time is up, symbol of peace, All for One taunted. Show the world your true form. With a final flicker, All Might's hero form gave out completely, revealing his skeletal, weakened state to the public and media who were broadcasting the scene live across Japan. Gasps and cries of disbelief rose from the watching crowds. The symbol of peace, the invincible All Might, was in reality a frail, injured man. All for One laughed. There it is, the truth revealed at last. What will society do now, I wonder, without their precious symbol? Before the villain could land a finishing blow, Izuku intercepted, placing himself between All Might and All for One. They'll find a new symbol, Izuku stated firmly. That's how society works. Heroes inspire others to step forward. All for One regarded him with interest. Ah, the alien child returns. Come to save your mentor, or perhaps to replace him? Neither, Izuku replied. I'm here to end this fight. Moving with purpose, Izuku engaged All for One directly. The villain's red sun radiation still affected him somewhat, but with his powers nearly restored and his determination absolute, Izuku pressed forward relentlessly. All for One combined multiple quirks, creating devastatingly powerful attacks that would have leveled city blocks if Izuku hadn't been there to absorb them. Each blast slowed Izuku momentarily but couldn't stop his advance. Fascinating, All for One commented as Izuku closed in. Such potential, such resolve. In another life, you might have made an excellent successor for my power. I already have all the power I need, Izuku replied. But what matters is how I use it. With a final burst of speed, Izuku broke through All for One's defenses and delivered a precisely calculated punch, powerful enough to incapacitate, but not kill. The villain crashed to the ground, his mask shattered, revealing a horribly scarred face beneath. As police and heroes moved in to secure All for One with specialized restraints, Izuku returned to All Might's side. Are you all right? He asked, concern evident. All Might nodded weakly. Thanks to you, young Midoriya. He looked around at the cameras recording everything. But the damage is done. They've all seen me like this now. Then show them something else, Izuku suggested. Show them that being a hero isn't about appearance or even power. It's about spirit. With Izuku's help, All Might stood, facing the cameras directly. Despite his weakened state, he raised his fist in a victory pose. It's fine, he declared to Seo, his voice stronger than his body would suggest. Why? Because the next generation of heroes is here. He placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder, a symbolic passing of the torch that was broadcast to millions across Japan. As emergency services moved in and the situation was finally contained, Izuku found himself the center of attention, not just as a powerful quirk user, but as someone who had stood beside All Might in his moment of vulnerability and demonstrated what it truly meant to be a hero. In the days that followed, Japan struggled to process what had happened. All Might's true form was front-page news everywhere, along with speculation about his future as a hero. Alongside this was coverage of Izuku, with many outlets already calling him the new symbol of peace, despite his youth. At UA, security was completely overhauled. Students were moved into on-campus dormitories to ensure their safety, and new protocols were established for emergency situations. Izuku found himself in an unusual position. His alien origin, while not publicly confirmed, had been heard by Bakugo and hinted at during the battle with All for One. Questions swirled among his classmates, but most were respectful enough not to press him directly. One evening, as Izuku sat alone on the roof of the dormitory, gazing at the stars, he heard someone approach. So, Bakugo said, sitting down beside him, you're not from Earth. It wasn't a question. Izuku sighed and nodded. I arrived as a baby. My adoptive parents found me in a spacecraft that crashed on their farm. They're the only ones who knew until now. Bakugo was quiet for a moment, following Izuku's gaze to the night sky. Which one? He finally asked. I don't know for sure, Izuku admitted. There was a message crystal in my ship. It mentioned a planet called Krypton that was destroyed. My birth parents sent me here to survive. Like some kind of space refugee, Bakugo mused, surprisingly without mockery. And all your powers, the strength, flight, whatever, That's all because you're an alien? Izuku nodded. Earth's yellow sun affects my cells differently than humans. It gives me these abilities. Bakugo absorbed this information silently, then asked, "Does it bother you, being different?" The question surprised Izuku. It was more thoughtful than he'd expected from Bakugo. "Sometimes," he answered honestly. "I've always wanted to fit in, to be normal. But my parents taught me that having these powers means I have a responsibility to help others." "That's why you want to be a hero." "Yes, not for fame or recognition, but because I can make a difference." Bakugo stood, looking down at Izuku with an unreadable expression. "Well, alien or not, I'm still going to surpass you someday. That's a promise." As Bakugo walked away, Izuku smiled slightly. Some things would never change, and somehow that was comforting. The next day, All Might, now permanently in his true form, called Izuku to his office at EU. "Young Midoriya," he began, "I want to thank you properly for what you did in Kamino. Without your intervention, All for One would have killed me." "I just did what any hero would do," Izuku replied modestly. All Might shook his head. "No, what you did was extraordinary, even by hero standards." He leaned forward. "But that brings me to something important we need to discuss. Your origin." Izuku tensed slightly. "You heard what All for One said." "Yes, and I've suspected for some time that your quirk wasn't like others. The combination of abilities, the sheer scale of your power, it didn't align with how quirks typically manifest." All Might's expression softened. "You don't have to tell me everything if you're not comfortable, but I want you to know that your secret is safe with me." Relief washed over Izuku. "Thank you. I've never really talked about it with anyone except my parents. Well, now you can talk to me as well if you ever need to." All Might paused, then added, "There's one more thing. As you know, I've announced my retirement from active hero work. I'll continue teaching at UA, but Japan needs new symbols to look up to." "You want me to be that symbol," Izuku stated, understanding instantly. "Not immediately. You're still a student with much to learn. But yes, eventually." All Might's blue eyes were serious. "Your power is unprecedented, but more importantly, your heart is in the right place. With proper guidance, you could become not just the symbol of peace, but something even greater." Izuku considered this responsibility solemnly. "I'll do my best to live up to your example, All Might." "I know you will," the former symbol of peace replied with a smile. "Now, let's talk about your special work-study program. I've arranged something unique for you." The months that followed brought new challenges and growth opportunities for Izuku and his classmates. The provisional license exam, a critical milestone for hero students, approached rapidly. While most of Class 1A spent weeks preparing for this difficult test, Izuku's situation was different. With his early provisional license already granted, albeit with limitations, he was technically exempt. However, he chose to participate anyway. "I want to be treated like any other student," he explained to Aizawa. "Besides, the exam tests more than just power. It tests judgment, rescue skills, and teamwork, all things I need to improve." The exam brought together students from various hero schools across Japan. As they gathered at the testing center, Izuku noticed the stares and whispers directed his way. "That's him, the alien kid who fought alongside All Might. I heard he can fly faster than jets. Is it even fair for him to be here? No one can compete with that." Ignoring the comments, Izuku focused on the exam proctor's explanation. The test would have two phases. First, a battle royale where students had to hit targets on each other's bodies to eliminate competitors. Second, a rescue operation in a simulated disaster zone. Only 100 of the 1,500 examinees will pass, the proctor announced. "Begin." Chaos erupted immediately. Students from other schools had specifically strategized to target UA students first, particularly Class 1A due to their media exposure. Izuku found himself surrounded by dozens of opponents, all firing their quirks at him simultaneously. Rather than simply evading or overpowering them, he used the opportunity to demonstrate control and judgment. He carefully deflected attacks away from himself and his classmates, using minimal force to tap targets on opponents while ensuring no one was seriously hurt. When the dust settled on the first phase, most of Class 1A had qualified, though some, like Bakugo and Todoroki, had failed due to their approach rather than lack of ability. The second phase proved more challenging in different ways. Izuku could easily rescue all the victims himself, but that would defeat the purpose of the exercise and fail to demonstrate what the examiners were looking for. Instead, he coordinated with other examinees, using his abilities to locate trapped victims and clear dangerous obstacles while allowing others to perform the actual rescues when appropriate. When professional rescue workers posing as victims critiqued their methods, Izuku listened carefully and adjusted his approach. By the end of the exam, Izuku had not only passed but received special commendation from the examiners for his restraint and teamwork despite his overwhelming power. "You could have dominated this test," one examiner noted. "Instead, you chose to empower others. That's the mark of a true hero." As they returned to UA, Izuku found himself consoling classmates who hadn't passed, particularly Bakugo, whose aggressive approach had cost him. "There will be other chances," Izuku assured him. "And I know you'll learn from this." Bakugo scowled but didn't argue. Since the Kamino incident, their relationship had shifted subtly. Not quite friendship, but a growing mutual respect. That evening, as the students gathered in the common area of their dormitory, a news broadcast caught their attention. A special report detailed strange phenomena occurring worldwide: unusual weather patterns, unexpected seismic activity, and bizarre energy readings detected in the atmosphere. "Scientists are baffled by these anomalies," the reporter stated. "Some speculate they may be related to quirk evolution on a global scale, while others suggest more exotic explanations, including possible interdimensional rifts." Izuku felt a strange sensation as he watched the report, an inexplicable pull towards something he couldn't identify. It reminded him of the feeling he sometimes got when examining the crystal from his spacecraft, a connection to something beyond Earth. That night, unable to sleep, Izuku flew high above the city, letting the peaceful solitude of the night sky clear his mind. As he hovered among the clouds, his enhanced vision noticed something unusual, a faint ripple in the air, like heat distortion but moving with purpose. Curious, he approached the anomaly. As he drew closer, the ripple expanded suddenly, enveloping him in a flash of energy that momentarily disoriented even his superhuman senses. When his vision cleared, Izuku found himself floating in what appeared to be a crystalline chamber, its architecture unlike anything on Earth. Before him stood a holographic projection of a man wearing robes with the same symbol that had been on Izuku's baby blanket. "Izuku Midoriya," the hologram spoke. "Or as you were born, Kal-El of Krypton. I am Jor-El, chief scientist of Krypton and father of your cousin, Kal-El." Izuku's heart raced. "My cousin? There's another like me? In another reality, yes?" The hologram gestured, creating a display of multiple Earth-like planets. "The multiverse contains many variations of Earth. On one, your cousin Kal-El arrived safely and grew to become that world's greatest hero. Your parents, my brother Zor-El and his wife Allura, sent you toward the same destination. But I ended up here instead," Izuku realized, "in this reality. Yes. A quantum anomaly diverted your vessel into this parallel Earth, one where humanity developed quirks instead of hosting alien visitors like your cousin." Jor-El's hologram studied him. "You have grown strong under this world's yellow sun as expected of our race." "Why are you contacting me now?" Izuku asked. "After all these years?" "Because the multiverse is in flux," Jor-El explained. "The barriers between realities are thinning. Soon, threats from other dimensions may find their way to your adopted world. Threats that may require a Kryptonian's power to confront." The hologram shifted, showing images of beings that made even Izuku feel uneasy, godlike entities with world-destroying power. "I have encoded this message into a quantum beacon that could reach across dimensions when the conditions were right. Now that you have found it, this Phantom Zone projector will serve as your fortress of solitude, a place to learn about your heritage and prepare for what is to come." Izuku took in the incredible information, his mind racing with implications. "Are you saying I'm not the only superpowered being in the multiverse? That there are others like me out there?" "Far more than you can imagine," Jor-El confirmed. "Some heroes, some villains, some beyond such simple definitions. The knowledge of Krypton is yours now, Kal-El. Use it wisely." As the hologram faded, Izuku found himself alone in the crystalline chamber, surrounded by advanced technology and records of a civilization that had been his birthright. He spent hours exploring the fortress, learning about Krypton's history, science, and the full extent of powers he might yet develop under Earth's yellow sun. When he finally emerged, flying back toward UA, dawn was breaking over the horizon. The world seemed different now, both smaller, knowing he was part of a much larger multiverse, and more precious, understanding that it faced threats beyond what even he had imagined. As he descended toward the UA campus, Izuku made a silent promise to himself and to his adoptive world. Whatever came through the weakening barriers between realities, he would be ready. Not just as Izuku Midoriya, UA student, or even as the next symbol of peace, but as Kon-El, last son of Krypton in this reality, protector of Earth and all who called it home. His journey was just beginning. After the climactic battle with All for One and the provisional licensing exam, Izuku found himself at a crossroads. The League of Villains had been temporarily scattered, All Might had officially retired from hero work, and UA continued under heightened security. Yet, despite these monumental events, something else occupied Izuku's thoughts. For weeks, he'd been detecting a strange energy signature, a high-frequency sound beyond human hearing that seemed to call to him from somewhere far south. At first, he dismissed it as atmospheric interference, but the signal grew stronger, more distinct, until he could no longer ignore it. "I need to take a few days off," Izuku told Principal Nezu one afternoon. "There's something I need to investigate." Nezu studied him with those inscrutable animal eyes. "This wouldn't have anything to do with the strange energy readings our sensors have been detecting near the Antarctic, would it?" Izuku shouldn't have been surprised. UA's monitoring systems were among the most advanced on the planet. "Yes, I think it might be connected to my origins," Nezu nodded. "I suspected as much." "Very well, but take this." He handed Izuku a small communication device, in case we need to reach you or you need us. That night, Izuku left a note for his parents explaining his absence and launched himself skyward. Flying at hypersonic speed, he crossed the equator within minutes, the air growing progressively colder as he approached the southern pole. The Antarctic stretched below him, a vast white expanse untouched by civilization. Using his enhanced vision, Izuku scanned the ice sheets, following the signal that now pulsed in his mind like a beacon. It led him to a seemingly unremarkable glacier near the pole itself. "Here," he murmured, descending. "It's coming from under the ice." Izuku used his heat vision, carefully melting through layer after layer of ancient ice. Nearly a mile down, his heat vision revealed something reflecting the light, something metallic and clearly not natural. With renewed purpose, Izuku accelerated his excavation. Finally, he broke through to a massive cavern that had been hidden for what must have been decades. And there, nestled in the ice, was a spacecraft. Unlike the small vessel that had brought him to Earth, this ship was enormous, easily the size of a commercial airliner. Its design was unmistakably similar to his own craft, with the same metallic alloy and the symbol of the House of El emblazoned on its hull. "Another Kryptonian ship," Izuku whispered, touching the cold metal surface. "But why here, and why now?" As his fingers traced the emblem, the ship responded. Lights activated along its surface, and a seam appeared, widening into a doorway. Warm air rushed out, carrying with it the scent of something Izuku had never experienced, yet somehow recognized, the air of Krypton. Inside, the ship was a marvel of technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Crystalline structures lined the walls, pulsing with energy. At the center of the main chamber stood a control console that activated as Izuku approached. A hologram materialized, a man wearing robes marked with the same symbol as Izuku's spacecraft. His face held a dignity and intelligence that commanded respect. "Kon-El, son of Zor-El and Allura?" The hologram spoke in a language Izuku had never heard, yet somehow understood perfectly. "If you are receiving this message, then you have survived and grown on your adopted world." "Kon-El?" Izuku asked, startled. "My name is Izuku Midoriya, the name given to you by your Earth parents," the hologram acknowledged. "But you were born Kon-El of Krypton, nephew to Jor-El and cousin to Kal-El. Who are you?" Izuku asked, though he suspected the answer. "I am an artificial intelligence containing the consciousness and knowledge of Jor-El, chief scientist of Krypton and your uncle. This vessel was dispatched after your smaller craft as a contingency. It contains the collected knowledge of Krypton and technology that may serve you in times of need." Izuku's mind raced. "My parents, my Kryptonian parents, what happened to them? And this cousin you mentioned?" The hologram's expression turned solemn. Krypton was destroyed shortly after your departure. Its core became unstable due to excessive mining and energy extraction. Your parents, like most Kryptonians, perished with our world. Izuku had always known he wasn't from Earth, but hearing the confirmation of his homeworld's destruction still struck him with unexpected grief. And my cousin? Kal-El? He was sent to Earth in another reality, another dimension in the multiverse. Jor-El was a pioneer in multiversal theory. He discovered that the universe exists in parallel with countless others, each with its own Earth. Your parents chose to send you toward the same destination as Kal-El, but a quantum disruption diverted your vessel to this particular Earth. Izuku absorbed this incredible information. You're saying I have family, a cousin, alive in another dimension? Yes, and this vessel contains technology capable of creating temporary bridges between realities. It was meant to find you, then offer you the choice to seek out others of your kind, should you wish it. The implications were staggering. Not only was Izuku not alone in the universe, but there were other Kryptonians, family, in parallel dimensions. After years of wondering about his origins, answers were finally within reach. How do I use this ship to cross dimensions? Izuku asked, his decision already made. The navigation system is keyed to Kryptonian biosignatures. It can locate Kal-El across the multiverse. The hologram gestured to the control console. Place your hand there. Izuku did as instructed. The crystalline technology hummed to life, and a three-dimensional star map appeared above the console, expanding to show not just this universe, but countless parallel realities. One point glowed brighter than the others. There, the AI stated, Kal-El's biosignature is strongest in that reality. How does the travel work? Will I be gone long from this Earth? Time flows differently between dimensions. What may be minutes here could be days there, or vice versa. The ship creates a quantum tunnel that allows passage between realities. As for duration, the bridge will remain stable for approximately 7 Earth days before you must return or risk being stranded. Izuku nodded, mentally preparing himself. I'm ready. Very well, stand in the central chamber. The process may be disorienting. Izuku positioned himself as directed. The ship's engines powered up, creating a high-pitched hum that grew in intensity. Light surrounded him, first blue, then shifting through the entire spectrum until it became a blinding white. Then came the sensation of being pulled in every direction at once, stretched across realities. For perhaps the first time since infancy, Izuku felt pain, though it was brief and abstract, more a concept than a physical sensation. When the light faded and his vision cleared, Izuku found himself standing on the ship's exterior platform. But the Antarctic wasteland was gone, replaced by an alien landscape of crystalline structures jutting from an Arctic terrain. The Fortress of Solitude, the AI's voice explained from a communicator on Izuku's wrist. Kal-El's sanctuary on this Earth. The ship detected it and brought you directly here. Izuku had barely processed this information when a blur of red and blue streaked across the sky, coming to an abrupt halt before him. Hovering there was a man in his prime, perhaps in his 30s, wearing a blue suit with a red cape that mirrored the colors of Izuku's own hero costume. On his chest was the same symbol that marked Izuku's baby blanket and spacecraft. Who are you? The man demanded, his voice powerful yet controlled. And how did you find this place? Izuku raised his hands in a gesture of peace. My name is Izuku Midoriya, but I was born Kon-El of Krypton. I believe you're my cousin, Kal-El. The man's stern expression shifted to shock, then cautious hope. Impossible. Krypton had no survivors besides me. I'm from another Earth, another dimension, Izuku explained. My father was Zor-El, brother to Jor-El. The man, Superman, as Izuku would soon learn he was called, studied him intently, using his X-ray vision to examine Izuku at the cellular level. You are Kryptonian, he finally acknowledged, his voice softening. But how did you cross dimensions? Izuku gestured to the ship behind him. It contains technology that allowed me to locate you across the multiverse. Superman's face broke into a smile that transformed him from intimidating to warmly familiar. Another child of Krypton. After all these years. He extended his hand. I'm Clark Kent. Welcome to my Earth, cousin. Their handshake became an embrace. Two survivors of a dead world, recognizing the family connection neither had expected to find. You're younger than I would have expected, Superman noted as he led Izuku into the magnificent fortress. "You must have been just a baby when Krypton died." "I was," Izuku confirmed. "I grew up not knowing what I was until my adoptive parents showed me the spacecraft. But what surprises me is that you're so much older. We must have left Krypton around the same time." Superman nodded thoughtfully. "Time might flow differently between our dimensions, or perhaps your journey took longer. How old are you?" 16, Izuku answered. "I was sent to Earth as an infant over 30 years ago," Superman explained. "The dimensional difference must be significant." Inside the fortress, Superman activated the crystals containing knowledge from Krypton. A hologram of an older man appeared, one who looked remarkably similar to the AI on Izuku's ship. "Father," Superman said to the hologram, "this is Kon-El, son of your brother Zor-El. He's come from another dimension." The hologram of Jor-El studied Izuku. The multiverse theory was correct then. Zor-El spoke of sending his son to Earth as well, though to our knowledge, no such craft was launched before the destruction. "In my reality it was," Izuku said. "I grew up on an Earth where people have evolved abilities called quirks. About 80% of the population has some kind of superpower." Superman looked surprised. "Fascinating. On this Earth, powered individuals are rare. Most of my colleagues gain their abilities through accidents, alien heritage, or magical sources." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the fortress's monitoring system. Superman's expression darkened as he viewed the holographic display. "What is it?" Izuku asked. "Trouble. Major trouble." Superman turned to face his newfound cousin. Darkseid, one of the most dangerous beings in the universe, appears to be launching a full-scale invasion of Earth. I need to contact the Justice League immediately. Justice League? This Earth's equivalent of pro-heroes, I suppose. A team of the most powerful defenders we have. Superman paused, considering. "I don't want to drag you into our problems when you've just arrived, but I'll help," Izuku said without hesitation. "That's what heroes do, regardless of which Earth they're from." Superman smiled, a look of pride crossing his face. "Then let's go meet the team." They flew from the fortress at speeds that would have been impossible for anyone but Kryptonians, Superman leading the way toward a satellite in Earth orbit, the Watchtower, headquarters of the Justice League. As they approached, Izuku marveled at the structure. "This is incredible. On my Earth, hero agencies operate individually or in small groups. Nothing this organized exists." "It took time to build this level of cooperation," Superman explained as they entered through an airlock. Many heroes preferred working alone at first. Inside, the Watchtower was a hive of activity. Heroes of all descriptions, some clearly not human, moved with purpose, preparing for battle. At the center of the command room stood a dark-clad figure whose presence commanded attention despite being surrounded by individuals with far more obvious powers. "Batman," Superman called, approaching the figure. "We have a new ally." Batman turned, his cowled face revealing nothing as he assessed Izuku. "Another Kryptonian? Explain." While Superman briefly recounted Izuku's arrival, Izuku observed the other heroes. A woman in armor with a golden lasso at her hip, Wonder Woman, he would learn. A man who moved in bursts of lightning speed, the Flash. A green-skinned being who hovered slightly above the floor, Martian Manhunter. And many others, each with abilities that would make them exceptional even on Izuku's quirk-filled Earth. "Darkseid's forces are emerging through boom tubes at these locations," Batman was saying, indicating points on a global map. "His parademons are targeting population centers while his generals focus on military installations. This appears to be a full invasion, not the usual raids for technology or prisoners." "What's his objective?" Wonder Woman asked. "The anti-life equation," Superman answered grimly. "Intelligence suggests he believes he's finally located it on Earth." "The what?" Izuku asked. "A mathematical formula that can eliminate free will," Batman explained tersely. "If Darkseid obtains it, he could enslave not just Earth, but the entire universe." The gravity of the situation hit Izuku. This wasn't just a villain attack like those he'd faced on his Earth. This was potentially an extinction-level threat. "We'll deploy in teams," Batman continued. "Superman, you and your cousin can take Metropolis. It's experiencing the heaviest concentration of boom tube activity." Superman nodded. "Ready?" he asked Izuku. "Ready." They flew from the Watchtower directly to Metropolis, a gleaming city that reminded Izuku somewhat of Tokyo, though with a distinctly American architectural style. Even from high altitude, they could see the invasion underway. Dark portals, boom tubes, hung in the sky, disgorging winged creatures that Batman had called parademons. They swarmed over buildings, capturing civilians and destroying infrastructure. At the center of the chaos, a massive figure directed the assault, nearly twice the height of a human, with gray stone-like skin and glowing red eyes. Kalibak, Superman identified. Darkseid's son. He's leading this attack personally. What's the plan? Izuku asked, assessing the battlefield with tactical precision. Civilians first, Superman replied. Then we shut down those boom tubes. Kalibak will be the final priority. They dove into action. Superman's experience was immediately evident in how efficiently he moved, rescuing civilians from collapsing structures while simultaneously using his heat vision to take down parademons. Izuku followed his lead, quickly adapting his own rescue techniques to the situation. Where Superman was precise and measured in his application of force, the result of decades protecting fragile humans, Izuku brought the innovation and adaptability he developed in UA's training. He combined flight patterns he'd learned from Hawks with grappling techniques from Gunhead's agency, creating a fighting style distinct from Superman's but equally effective. "You're good," Superman called as they regrouped after clearing a section of the city. "Different technique than I would use, but effective." "I've had excellent teachers," Izuku replied, though none with powers like ours. Their brief respite ended as Kalibak noticed their presence. "Kryptonians!" he roared. "My father will reward me greatly for your deaths," he charged, wielding a massive energy staff that crackled with power. Superman met him head-on, the collision creating a shockwave that shattered windows for blocks around. Izuku flanked to the side, using his heat vision to target Kalibak's weapon. The staff grew white-hot in the villain's grip, forcing him to drop it. This momentary distraction gave Superman the opening to land a devastating punch that sent Kalibak flying through an already evacuated building. "The boom tubes!" Superman shouted, pointing to the portals still disgorging parademons. Izuku nodded and flew upward. From his experience with Kurogiri's warp gates, he knew portal technology often required continuous energy to maintain. Using his X-ray vision, he located the power signature at the edge of each boom tube. "Superman! They're powered from the edges. If we disrupt the energy flow, they might collapse." Superman immediately grasped the strategy. Together, they targeted the boom tubes with precisely calibrated heat vision, disrupting the exotic energy maintaining the portals. One by one, the boom tubes collapsed, cutting off the parademon reinforcements. Kalibak roared in fury as he emerged from the rubble. "It matters not. Enough forces have already arrived to raze this city to the ground." He slammed his fists into the ground, creating a seismic wave that tore through the street. Izuku and Superman took to the air to avoid it, then executed a pincer attack they hadn't planned but performed as if they'd trained together for years. The instinctive coordination of those who shared not just powers, but blood. Superman struck from the front, occupying Kalibak's attention, while Izuku attacked from behind, targeting the neural clusters at the base of the villain's skull, a technique he'd learned for subduing Nomus. Kalibak staggered, momentarily paralyzed, giving Superman the opportunity to land a knockout blow. As Kalibak fell unconscious, Izuku's superhearing detected something that made his blood run cold, a deep, resonant voice speaking through the communication device on the fallen villain's belt. "Pathetic," the voice said. "If you cannot handle two Kryptonians, you are of no use to me." Superman's expression darkened. "Darkseid." The communicator projected a hologram of the being Izuku had heard about, a towering figure with a face that seemed carved from granite, eyes glowing with malevolent red energy. "Kal-El," Darkseid acknowledged, "and another Kryptonian. How unexpected." "Your invasion has failed, Darkseid," Superman stated. "The Justice League is repelling your forces worldwide." This was merely a test of your defenses," Darkseid replied, his tone dismissive. "The real invasion has yet to begin. Enjoy your temporary victory, Kryptonian. I will be seeing you soon." The hologram vanished, leaving Superman and Izuku standing amidst the devastation of what had only been a test. "Is he always this ominous?" Izuku asked. "Darkseid doesn't make idle threats," Superman replied grimly. "If he says the real invasion is coming, we need to prepare." They spent the next hours helping with cleanup and rescue operations across Metropolis, working alongside emergency services that seemed well-practiced in post-superhuman battle procedures. Izuku was impressed by their efficiency. They had protocols for everything from parademon corpse disposal to building stabilization. As evening fell, they returned to the watchtower for a debriefing. The Justice League had successfully repelled the attacks worldwide, but at significant cost. Several members were injured, and the global damage estimate was in the billions. Preliminary analysis suggests this was indeed a probing attack, Batman reported. Darkseid was testing our response patterns and defensive capabilities. For what purpose? Wonder Woman asked. To identify weaknesses for the main assault, Izuku suggested, drawing on his tactical training. On my Earth, we've seen villains use similar strategies, sacrificing pawns to reveal how heroes respond. Batman nodded. Precisely. Our satellite network has detected unusual energy readings near Saturn. Something large is approaching, likely Darkseid's main invasion force. How long do we have? Superman asked. At current velocity, 3 days. The gravity of the situation settled over the room. 3 days to prepare for an invasion that could end human civilization. We need to warn governments worldwide, Wonder Woman said. Coordinate evacuation of major cities. And prepare our own countermeasures, Batman added. We need every available League member and ally. As the meeting continued, Izuku found himself struck by the scale of what they were facing. His battles against the League of Villains, even All for One, suddenly seemed small by comparison. This was planetary defense against a godlike threat. Later, as they rested in Superman's Metropolis apartment, his civilian residence as reporter Clark Kent, Izuku shared this observation. The scope is different, he admitted. On my Earth, we deal with powerful villains, but nothing like Darkseid. Superman nodded, setting down 2 mugs of coffee. Every Earth faces its own challenges. The threats here escalated over time as heroes emerged to counter them. It's a kind of cosmic balance. Do you think my Earth might eventually face similar threats, especially now that dimensional barriers are weakening? It's possible. It's possible, Superman acknowledged, which makes it all the more important that you're gaining this experience now. They spent the evening sharing stories, Superman about his upbringing in Smallville, Kansas with the Kents, and Izuku about his life with the Midoriyas and his journey to UA. Despite their age difference and the vastly different worlds they'd grown up in, the similarities in their experiences were striking. Both had struggled with controlling their developing powers as teenagers. Both had chosen paths of heroism despite having the power to do virtually anything they wanted. And both lived dual lives. One as a powerful hero, the other trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. You remind me of myself at your age, Superman said with a smile. Though I think you've adapted to your powers more quickly than I did. It took me years to fully accept who I was. I had good guidance, Izuku replied. My parents, my teachers at UA, even All Might. This All Might sounds like someone I'd like to meet someday. He was our symbol of peace, like you are here, though he's retired now. The conversation paused as Superman's super hearing detected something. Izuku heard it too, a high-frequency alert from the watchtower. That's not good, Superman said, already changing into his suit at super speed. The invasion timeline has accelerated. Darkseid's forces are already entering the solar system. They flew to the watchtower immediately. The atmosphere there had changed from determined preparation to urgent action. Batman stood at the command center, issuing orders as reports came in from around the globe. Apocalypse war machines have been detected entering Earth's atmosphere, he reported as Superman and Izuku arrived. They're positioning themselves above major cities worldwide. The main screen showed massive ships, each the size of a small city, descending through the clouds. From their undersides, smaller craft deployed, carrying troops and equipment. This is it, Superman said. The main invasion. Batman nodded. League members are deploying to defense points according to the contingency plan. Superman, you and Midoriya take the flagship over Metropolis. Intelligence suggests Darkseid himself is commanding from there. Direct confrontation with Darkseid? Izuku asked, recalling what he'd been told about the being's power level. It's what he wants, Superman explained. He and I have a history. He'll expect me to come to him. Which is why you won't go alone, Batman stated flatly. The two of you together might stand a chance where one would fall. The plan set, they launched from the watchtower toward Metropolis. As they approached, Izuku got his first look at Apocalypse technology in full deployment. The flagship was a monstrous construct of alien metal, bristling with weapons that fired continuous barrages at the city below. Smaller craft swarmed around it like angry insects, and boom tubes opened across the skyline, delivering troops directly to strategic locations. "Remember," Superman said as they flew toward the flagship, "Darkseid's Omega beams can track targets and can potentially kill even us. Don't try to outrun them, that's impossible. Either block them with something equally indestructible, or get out of their line of sight." Izuku nodded, processing this tactical information alongside everything else he'd learned. "What's our entry point?" Superman pointed to a section of the flagship where ships were coming and going. "The hangar bay. We fight our way in from there." They accelerated to attack speed, breaking the sound barrier as they approached the flagship. Instantly, defense systems locked onto them, firing energy weapons that Izuku recognized as similar to the red sun radiation All for One had somehow replicated. "Evasive maneuvers," Superman called, dodging the beams with practiced skill. Izuku followed suit, weaving through the barrage with the agility he'd developed during years of hero training. Where Superman relied on decades of experience, Izuku compensated with the combat innovations he'd learned at UA, combining aerial maneuvers from Hawks with the precise timing he'd observed in Edge Shot. They reached the hangar bay, smashing through the energy shield that contained its atmosphere. Inside, troops of various species scrambled to respond to the breach. Most were parademons, but some were larger, had more heavily armed soldiers that Superman identified as elite guards. "The bridge will be at the center of the ship," Superman said as they fought through the initial resistance. "Darkseid will be there." They battled their way forward, their Kryptonian strength making short work of even the elite guards. Izuku found himself adapting quickly to the alien environment, using the ship's own infrastructure as weapons, tearing out support beams to sweep away groups of enemies, redirecting energy conduits to create barriers. As they approached the central section of the flagship, resistance intensified. They encountered specialized troops wielding weapons specifically designed to combat Kryptonians. Red sun projectors, kryptonite-tipped spears, even sonic disruptors tuned to Kryptonian hearing. "They came prepared for you," Izuku noted as they took cover behind a bulkhead to regroup. "Darkseid always does," Superman replied. "But he wasn't expecting two of us." They developed a new strategy on the spot. Superman would draw attention as the known quantity, while Izuku would use his less familiar fighting style to approach from unexpected angles. It worked brilliantly. The defenders had countermeasures for Superman's well-documented techniques, but were unprepared for Izuku's quirk-influenced combat methods. Finally, they reached the massive doors leading to the bridge. Superman looked at Izuku. "Ready? Once we're in, there's no retreat." Izuku nodded, his expression determined. "Ready?" Together, they ripped the doors from their moorings and entered the bridge, a vast chamber dominated by a throne-like command chair. And there, rising from it as they entered, was Darkseid himself. In person, the ruler of Apocalypse was even more imposing than his hologram had suggested. Standing nearly 10 feet tall with gray skin that looked like living stone, he emanated power and malevolence. His eyes glowed with inner fire, and his expression was one of cold contempt. "Kal-El," he greeted, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Predictable as always. And you've brought the other Kryptonian. How convenient. I can eliminate both of you at once." "It's over, Darkseid," Superman declared. "Your forces are being defeated across the globe. Surrender now." Darkseid's expression didn't change, but somehow his contempt seemed to deepen. "Surrender? To insects? You understand nothing, Kryptonian. This invasion is merely a means to an end." He gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing a complex mathematical formula that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "The anti-life equation, finally within my grasp. Once I possess it fully, surrender will be a concept that ceases to exist. There will only be Darkseid. Now!" Superman shouted. They attacked simultaneously from different angles, Superman striking directly while Izuku flanked to the side. For a being of his size, Darkseid moved with surprising speed, blocking Superman's punch with one arm, while firing Omega beams from his eyes at Izuku. Remembering Superman's warning, Izuku didn't try to outrun the beams. Instead, he grabbed a piece of the ship's hull plating and used it as a shield. The Omega beams struck the metal, disintegrating it instantly, but the momentary block gave Izuku the time to close distance. What followed was the most intense battle of Izuku's life. Darkseid was unlike any opponent he'd faced. Stronger than the Nomu, more skilled than All for One, and with powers that seemed almost magical in nature. Each blow from the tyrant felt like being hit by a mountain, and his Omega beams forced them into constant defensive movement. Yet together, the two Kryptonians gradually gained ground. They established a rhythm, attacking in tandem. When one retreated to avoid Omega beams, the other pressed forward. They used their heat vision in concert, targeting the same points to overcome Darkseid's incredible durability. Enough! Darkseid finally roared, slamming his fists into the deck with such force that the entire ship shuddered. The impact created a shockwave that sent both Kryptonians flying backward. Taking advantage of the momentary reprieve, Darkseid activated a device on his arm. The holographic display of the anti-life equation expanded, sections of it beginning to lock into place. "You're too late," he announced. "The equation is nearly complete. Soon, all life in this universe will bend to my will." Izuku, recovering faster than Superman thanks to his younger body's resilience, analyzed the situation rapidly. The mathematical patterns in the equation reminded him of support items he'd seen Hatsume develop, complex algorithms designed to interface with biological systems. It's a mind control formula, he realized aloud, but it requires a broadcast medium. His eyes darted around the bridge, noticing connections between Darkseid's control console and the ship's communication array. That was it. He planned to broadcast the equation through the flagship systems using the invasion fleet as amplifiers. "Superman," Izuku called. "The communications array. We need to destroy it." Superman understood immediately. While Darkseid moved to protect his console, Superman redirected his attack toward the massive communication dish visible through the bridge's viewport. His heat vision lanced out, slicing through the support structures. Darkseid roared in fury, firing Omega beams at Superman. This time, there was nothing to block them. The beams struck Superman directly, sending him crashing through the bridge wall into an adjacent chamber. "Now it's just you, young Kryptonian," Darkseid said, turning to Izuku. "Impressive that you identified the broadcast method so quickly, but it changes nothing. There are other ways to transmit the equation." Izuku didn't waste breath responding. Instead, he attacked with everything he had, flying at Darkseid at maximum speed, striking with the full force of his Kryptonian strength. The impact sent the tyrant staggering back into his command console, damaging it. The holographic equation flickered, portions of it dissolving as the hardware supporting it failed. "No," Darkseid bellowed, his usual stoicism finally cracking. He grabbed Izuku by the throat, his massive hand easily encircling the teenager's neck. "You dare interfere with godhood?" Despite the crushing pressure, Izuku managed to smile. "I've faced gods before," he gasped, referring to All for One. "They bleed just like everyone else." With a tremendous effort, he broke Darkseid's grip and delivered an uppercut that sent the tyrant crashing into the ceiling. As Darkseid fell back to the deck, Superman returned, having recovered from the Omega beams. Together, they pressed their advantage. The damaged console continued to spark and smoke, the precious equation fragmenting further with each passing second. Darkseid fought with increasing desperation, his calculated strategy giving way to rage-fueled power. In the final moments of the battle, Darkseid made a fatal error, focusing too much on Superman, the known threat, while underestimating Izuku. This allowed Izuku to access the ship's power core through a secondary console, overriding safety protocols. "Superman!" Izuku shouted. "The ship's going to self-destruct. We need to evacuate the city below." Superman nodded grimly. With a final powerful blow, he sent Darkseid crashing into the remains of his precious console, destroying the last fragments of the anti-life equation. "This isn't over, Kryptonian," Darkseid growled as boom tubes began opening around him, his personal escape route. "It never is," Superman replied. "But today, Earth stands." As Darkseid retreated through a boom tube, Superman and Izuku flew from the flagship, racing to evacuate civilians from the potential blast radius. Using their super speed and strength, They cleared a massive area below the ship, working with other heroes who had arrived to assist. Minutes later, the flagship detonated in a spectacular explosion that temporarily turned night to day over Metropolis. The shockwave was tremendous, but thanks to their evacuation efforts, no lives were lost. In the aftermath, as emergency services moved in and the Justice League coordinated the neutralization of remaining Apocalypse forces, Superman placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. "You fought well," he said, genuine pride in his voice, like a true Kryptonian and a true hero. Izuku felt a warmth spread through him at this praise from his newfound family. "I learned from the best, on both Earths." The days that followed were filled with cleanup operations, debriefings, and, for Izuku, learning more about his Kryptonian heritage. Superman took him to the Fortress of Solitude, where he accessed the full knowledge crystals, learning about Krypton's history, culture, and science. "It's strange," Izuku said as they reviewed holographic recreations of Kryptonian cities. "I feel connected to this world I never knew." "I understand," Superman replied. "I was too young to remember Krypton when I was sent to Earth. Learning about our heritage was like discovering a part of myself I never knew was missing." On the 6th day of Izuku's stay, with the dimensional bridge's stability window closing soon, they had a final dinner at the Kent farm in Smallville. Superman's adoptive mother, Martha Kent, welcomed Izuku with the same warmth she'd shown her own son decades earlier. "Family is family," she said simply, serving up home-cooked food that reminded Izuku of his mother's cooking. "It doesn't matter what planet you're from." As they prepared to say goodbye the next morning, Superman presented Izuku with a gift, a crystal containing copies of the Kryptonian knowledge database. "For your ship," he explained, "so you can continue learning about our people." Izuku accepted it gratefully. "Thank you for everything, not just this, but for showing me what it means to be Kryptonian." "You already knew," Superman replied with a smile. "You've been living it your whole life. Being Kryptonian isn't just about the powers, it's about how we use them." With a final embrace, Izuku activated the return sequence on his communicator. The dimensional bridge reopened, creating the same disorienting light tunnel that had brought him here. "I'll try to visit again," Izuku promised as the energy field began to envelop him. "And perhaps someday I'll see your Earth," Superman replied. "Until then, fly high, cousin." The journey back felt shorter somehow, as if the path had been well established by his previous crossing. When the light faded, Izuku found himself standing beside the Kryptonian ship in the Antarctic cavern, exactly where he had departed. But something felt wrong immediately. The communicator Nezu had given him was buzzing with dozens of missed alerts, and when he checked the date, Izuku's blood ran cold. 3 weeks had passed on his Earth, not the 7 days he had expected. The time differential between dimensions had been more significant than the AI had predicted. What had been just under a week in Superman's world had been nearly a month in his own. "No," Izuku whispered, immediately launching himself skyward, flying toward Japan at maximum speed. "Please let everything be okay." But as he approached the familiar coastline of his home country, he knew immediately that things were far from okay. Even from high altitude, he could see columns of smoke rising from several cities. Using his enhanced vision, he zoomed in on Tokyo and saw destruction that reminded him of Darkseid's invasion, but this was not the work of an apocalypse. This was the League of Villains. Izuku landed at UA, finding the campus transformed into what appeared to be a fortified command center. Hero teams came and went, many bearing injuries, all looking exhausted. When he walked through the gate, the first person to spot him was Uraraka. "Izuku!" she screamed, her face showing disbelief and then overwhelming relief. She ran to him, throwing her arms around him in an uncharacteristic display of emotion. "You're alive. We thought. "I'm sorry," he said, holding her gently. The time differential was greater than expected. "What happened? Where is everyone?" Uraraka's expression darkened. "It's Shigaraki. He's changed. 2 weeks ago, he led a massive attack on multiple cities simultaneously, without you or All Might." She didn't need to finish. Izuku could fill in the blanks. Without the two strongest heroes, the villain alliance had seen an opportunity and seized it. Aizawa appeared, his expression unreadable as always, but his voice betraying rare emotion. "Midoriya, your timing could be better, but I'm glad you're back." "I never intended to be gone so long," Izuku explained. Time flows differently between dimensions. Explanations later, Aizawa replied. Right now, we need you in the command center. Shigaraki has All for One's quirk now, all of his quirks, and he's created something new, something we haven't seen before. The situation was dire. In Izuku's absence, Shigaraki had undergone a transformation both physically and in terms of power. He had fully assimilated All for One's quirk along with dozens of others, creating a being of unprecedented destructive capability. He calls himself Decay God now. Hawks reported in the command center, his wings noticeably damaged. His decay quirk has evolved. It doesn't just disintegrate what he touches. It spreads like a wave, consuming everything. Entire city blocks gone in seconds. Combined with All for One's ability to steal quirks, he's become nearly unstoppable, Endeavor added, his flame beard burning lower than usual, evidence of exhaustion. We've lost 17 heroes already trying to contain him. Izuku absorbed this grim information, his mind racing. Where is he now? Moving toward Musutafu, Principal Nezu replied, gesturing to a tracking display. We believe his ultimate target is UA itself, specifically you. Me? All for One was obsessed with you, Aizawa explained, with your Kryptonian physiology. That obsession has transferred to Shigaraki. He's convinced that by stealing your power, he'll achieve some form of perfect evolution. But my abilities aren't quirks, Izuku pointed out. They can't be stolen. Shigaraki doesn't know that, or doesn't believe it, Aizawa replied. All for One must have filled his head with theories about Kryptonian biology that might make it possible. Izuku considered this, then made a decision. If he wants me, he can have me. I'll face him directly, away from population centers. That's exactly what he wants, Endeavor objected. I know, but I've gained experience fighting threats beyond anything we've seen here. Izuku's expression was resolute. I face Darkseid, a being who makes All for One look like a street thug. I can handle Shigaraki. His confidence silenced objections. A plan quickly formed. They would evacuate the projected path between Shigaraki's current location and a designated battleground away from civilians. Izuku would meet him there, with other heroes forming a perimeter to handle any remaining League members who might accompany him. Before deploying, Izuku took a moment to call his parents, assuring them he was safe and apologizing for his extended absence. Then he sought out Bakugo, finding him in the training ground, pushing himself despite obvious injuries. Bakugo turned, his expression cycling through shock, relief, and then settling on his usual scowl. About damn time you showed up, Space Boy, having fun with your alien relatives while we fought for our lives? There was real anger there, but underneath it, Izuku detected genuine hurt at being left behind. I never meant to be gone so long, Izuku explained. But I learned things about my powers, about what it means to be Kryptonian, things that might help us now. Bakugo studied him for a moment, then nodded curtly. Well, you'd better put it to good use. That freak Shigaraki is nothing like what you remember. He's wrong somehow, like he's not even human anymore. The evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency, testament to protocols developed during Izuku's absence. Within hours, a 10-kilometer area was cleared, creating a battlefield where collateral damage could be minimized. Izuku hovered above it, waiting. He didn't need to wait long. A ripple of decay spread across the landscape, dissolving everything in its path: trees, rocks, abandoned structures. At the center of this wave of destruction walked Shigaraki, though he barely resembled the villain Izuku remembered. His body had changed, becoming something hybrid, part human, part something else. His skin had a grayish cast reminiscent of All for One, and multiple quirk factors were visible as physical mutations. Most disturbing were his eyes, glowing red with malevolent energy that reminded Izuku uncomfortably of Darkseid's Omega beams. Midoriya, Shigaraki called, his voice carrying unnaturally. The prodigal hero returns. Did you enjoy your little interdimensional vacation while Japan burned? Izuku descended, landing a safe distance from the decay field surrounding Shigaraki. It's over, Shigaraki. You've caused enough destruction. Shigaraki laughed, the sound distorted and wrong. Over? It's barely begun. Do you know what I discovered in your absence? The true nature of quirks, the metagene that All for One spent centuries studying. With your Kryptonian DNA, I can perfect it, evolve beyond anything this world has seen. You're delusional, Izuku stated flatly. My abilities aren't quirks. They can't be stolen or replicated. We'll see. Shigaraki's body tensed, and suddenly he moved with shocking speed. Not Kryptonian fast, but far quicker than any human should be. I've acquired some interesting quirks while you were gone. Speed, strength, energy manipulation. The battle began in earnest. Shigaraki's newfound powers made him a far more formidable opponent than Izuku had anticipated. He had clearly absorbed quirks specifically selected to counter Kryptonian abilities, including one that generated red sun radiation similar to what All for One had used. But Izuku had faced Darkseid. He had trained with Superman, and he had learned more about his own Kryptonian nature than ever before. He adapted his fighting style, combining the techniques he'd developed at UA with those he'd observed in the Justice League. Where Shigaraki expected him to rely on brute strength, Izuku employed precision and strategy. When Shigaraki created decay fields to limit his movement, Izuku took to the air, using his heat vision to attack from a distance. The battle raged across the evacuation zone, reshaping the landscape with each exchange. Shigaraki's decay waves dissolved entire hillsides, while Izuku's heat vision cut trenches through the earth. Their physical clashes created shockwaves that could be felt kilometers away. Throughout it all, Izuku maintained control, limiting his power to avoid civilian casualties, constantly aware of the hero perimeter maintaining the evacuation. This discipline stood in stark contrast to Shigaraki's increasing frenzy as the villain realized he couldn't easily overcome Kryptonian physiology. "Why won't you die?" Shigaraki screamed, his decay field expanding in all directions in a desperate attack. Izuku shot upward to avoid it, then used his freeze breath to create a barrier of ice, temporarily containing the decay's spread. Because heroes don't give up, Shigaraki, not when people are counting on them. Heroes? Shigaraki spat, always hiding behind ideals. Do you know what I learned from All for One before he died? The truth about quirks. They're a parasite, an alien DNA that infected humanity centuries ago. We're all mutations, aberrations. I'm just taking the next evolutionary step. This revelation stunned Izuku momentarily. Could quirks actually be alien in origin? Was that why they had never developed in Superman's Earth? Shigaraki seized this moment of distraction, combining multiple quirks into a devastating attack that actually managed to wound Izuku, drawing blood from a gash across his chest. First blood, Shigaraki crowed. Not so invulnerable after all. Izuku wiped the blood away, his resolve hardening. Throughout his hero career, he had always held back, always sought to rehabilitate rather than destroy. But facing Shigaraki now, seeing what he had become and the devastation he had caused, Izuku recognized a terrible truth. Some villains couldn't be redeemed. "I'm sorry it came to this," Izuku said quietly, "but you've made your choice." What followed was no longer a battle, but an execution. Izuku stopped restraining his Kryptonian power, moving with his full speed and striking with his full strength. Shigaraki, for all his accumulated quirks and mutations, was unprepared for the unleashed potential of a Kryptonian fighting without limitations. The end came swiftly. Izuku broke through Shigaraki's defenses and delivered a precise strike to his heart, stopping it instantly. As Shigaraki fell, his body began to disintegrate, the unstable amalgamation of quirks breaking down without his consciousness to control them. In his final moments, clarity seemed to return to Shigaraki's eyes. "Was it worth it?" he gasped. "All the power, all the sacrifice." "No," Izuku answered honestly, "it never is." Shigaraki's body completed its dissolution, leaving nothing but dust that scattered in the wind, a fitting end for the Master of Decay. The aftermath of Shigaraki's defeat brought both relief and solemn reflection. Japan began the long process of rebuilding, mourning those lost during the villain's rampage. For Izuku, it was a time of personal reckoning. He had taken a life, crossing a line he had once believed inviolable. "You did what was necessary," All Might told him during a quiet conversation at the beach where they had once trained. "Sometimes being a hero means making impossible choices." "I know," Izuku replied, "but understanding doesn't make it easier." "It never should," All Might said wisely. "The day taking a life becomes easy is the day you should hang up your cape." In the months that followed, Hero Society underwent significant changes. With the League of Villains effectively dissolved and the public aware of interdimensional threats thanks to leaked information about Izuku's journey, the Hero Commission implemented new protocols and training regimens. Izuku took a more active role in this restructuring, drawing on what he had learned from the Justice League. He advocated for more comprehensive cooperation between hero agencies, better disaster response protocols, and proactive threat assessment. He also spent time with the Antarctic ship, using the crystal Superman had given him to continue learning about Kryptonian culture and science. With Nezu's approval, he established a secure facility beneath UA, where the ship could be studied safely, a Earth version of Superman's Fortress of Solitude. As his third year at UA began, Izuku found himself increasingly drawn to one particular classmate, Momo Yaoyorozu. Her intelligence, creativity, and quiet strength had always impressed him, but now he found himself appreciating her in new ways. Your creation quirk has similarities to Kryptonian technology, he explained one afternoon as they studied together in the newly established Kryptonian archive. The way you visualize and create matter is remarkably similar to how the crystalline computers process information. Fascinating, Momo replied, genuinely interested. Do you think there might be some connection between quirks and Kryptonian biology after all? It's possible. Shigaraki mentioned that All for One believed quirks had extraterrestrial origins. It might explain why they developed on this Earth, but not on Superman's. Their shared intellectual curiosity blossomed into something deeper. Momo was one of the few people who understood the burden of Izuku's power, not just the physical abilities, but the responsibility that came with them. She challenged him intellectually while supporting him emotionally, becoming a partner in every sense. By graduation, they were inseparable. While other students formed hero agencies or joined established ones, Izuku and Momo created something unique. The Planetary Defense Initiative, an organization dedicated to preparing Earth for extraterrestrial and interdimensional threats. With backing from the Hero Commission and private funding from the Yaoyorozu family, PDI quickly became a reality. They established headquarters in Musutafu, equipped with monitoring technology derived from Kryptonian designs, capable of detecting disturbances in dimensional barriers or approaching cosmic threats. 5 years after graduation, as PDI had grown into a respected global organization, Izuku and Momo married in a ceremony that brought together heroes from across Japan. Even All Might, his health declining but his spirit undiminished, attended to give his blessing to the union. You've exceeded every expectation I ever had for you, young Midoriya. The former symbol of peace said during the reception, not just as a hero, but as a man. Their honeymoon was unconventional, a trip to the Antarctic facility where Izuku had prepared a special surprise. Using the dimensional travel technology, he had arranged a brief visit to Superman's Earth, giving Momo the opportunity to meet his Kryptonian cousin. Superman, now showing slight signs of age but still every bit the hero, welcomed them warmly to the Fortress of Solitude. The multiverse works in mysterious ways, he said, observing the couple. On my Earth, I also found love with a brilliant woman who keeps me grounded. This interdimensional relationship became a regular part of their lives. The time differential remained unpredictable. Sometimes months would pass in one dimension while only weeks passed in the other. But they maintained contact, sharing knowledge and experiences across the multiverse. 10 years after defeating Shigaraki, Izuku stood on the balcony of PDI headquarters, holding his 3-year-old daughter, Nora, named after Superman's Kryptonian family name, Nor-El. Beside him, Momo cradled their infant son, Hoshi. "Papa, fly?" Nora asked, her green eyes, so like his own, wide with excitement. Izuku smiled and gently lifted off the balcony, hovering just a few feet in the air. Nora squealed with delight, already showing signs of inheriting his Kryptonian abilities. Not too high, Momo cautioned, though her smile showed she wasn't truly worried. Never, Izuku promised, both to his wife and to himself. As the sun set over Musutafu, painting the sky in shades of orange and red so different from Krypton's red sun, Izuku reflected on his journey. From a child who had fallen from the stars to a hero who had saved 2 worlds. From a boy unsure of his place to a man who had built bridges between dimensions. From someone searching for identity to a husband and father creating a legacy. He was Izuku Midoriya. He was Con-El of Krypton. He was a hero, a husband, a father, a friend. And as he held his daughter against the darkening sky, he made the same promise his birth parents and adoptive parents had made to him. To protect, to nurture, to guide, to ensure that the legacy of both Earth and Krypton continued in the children who would inherit the best of both worlds. The story of the last son of Krypton in this dimension was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning.
First up, big thanks to our newest pro hero, Javon McQuire. Every bit of support makes a huge difference. Next, massive love to our Symbol of Peace tier legends. MJ Brown, Omar Cousin, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Hassassin 24, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Carlos Terry, Rafael Tehran, and Kevin Hall. You guys are absolute pillars holding this channel strong. And finally, standing tall at the top, the ones carrying the weight of destiny itself, our hope of the universe, Major and Colsey. Thank you all so much for keeping these stories alive. You're the real MVPs. That's how a Kryptonian Deku conquers everything. From multiversal battles to family life with Momo, this story had it all. Which moment blew your mind the most? Drop it in the comments. Smash that like button if you want more overpowered Deku stories. And subscribe for epic what-if adventures that'll keep you hooked. Thanks for watching.